Chapter 1550. Someone that palace master values? Xiangyang suddenly remembered Xiaohua's sect master's token, and unconsciously felt bitter in his heart. Of course I've always been low-key. Since Xiaohua has the sect master's token, what do I have to worry about? Xiaohua's expression didn't change as he said indifferently, I don't dare. Junior has only seen sect master a few times. I can't say that he values me. A few times. Junior brother Xiao makes it sound so simple. Zhen Feng was still full of smiles as he said, Palace Master has already sent a message to my Rushing Thunder Hall's deacon. Junior brother Xiao can choose any of my Shocking Thunder Hall's odd job workers. Isn't this valuing you? Hiss, Xiangyang secretly sucked in a breath of cold air. He had never heard of this kind of situation before. Xiaohua didn't even lift his eyelids as he said, Senior's arrangement is exactly what Junior likes. I just don't know which herb garden is the most deserted. Junior will only take that herb garden's job. Don't Zhen Feng was very anxious as he hurriedly shouted Junior brother Xiao. I have already arranged Junior brother's position properly since I received the deacon's order. It's the talisman crafting job. I blocked more than 10 senior brothers and martial uncles to make this arrangement. I hope Junior brother will be satisfied. Zhen Feng said anxiously. No need. Xiaohua slightly shook his head. Junior still feels that the herb garden's job is better. Junior brother, Xiangyang softly shouted. Now is not the time to be angry. That herb garden is very far from here. Every day, you have to go there and come back. It's not good for your cultivation. If Junior brother doesn't like talisman crafting, why don't you find an alchemy master and become their alchemy boy? You can also gain something. Alchemy boy? Xiaohua thought in his heart, but he felt relieved right after that. At this moment, he was already capable of refining medicinal pills, and his technique was slightly different from Donrain continent. Even if he found a master capable of refining pills to observe from the side, then wouldn't he be looking for trouble for himself? Xiaohua firmly shook his head. Thank you, Senior. Junior wants to go to the herb garden. Senior brother Zhen Feng turned his head. The way he addressed him changed again. Xiangyang sighed and pulled Xiaohua to the side as he asked in a low voice. Junior brother, why do you want to go to the herb garden? It's hard and tiring, and you can't even see any results. You're even more disliked than the guards in my myriad Thunder Valley. Eldest senior brother, I don't have any ideas. We've just offended the disciple on duty in the Jade Archive Hall. Why don't we quickly find a remote place to hide? What's the point of showing off in front of others? The less trouble, the better. Isn't that what you just said? But our Thunderclap Palace's herb garden is really very desolate. Even if something happens, no one will know. It's not convenient for me to tell you clearly. Master's wife said it well. Where there are people, there will be fighting. But what if there are no people? What is it? Xiangyang seemed to be really worried about Xiaohua's future and said anxiously. Oh. Xiaohua of course understood. His eyes narrowed slightly before he smiled and said, Thank you for your reminder, eldest senior brother. Little brother already understands. Oh, that's good. Xiangyang let out a sigh of relief, but Xiaohua's next sentence made him choke. Little brother still wants to go to the medicinal garden. Oh, all right. Xiangyang looked at the stunned Xiaohua and sighed. This is your own choice. It's not good for me to interfere. And if eldest senior brother can choose, then little brother can also choose. Xiaohua smiled. When Xiangyang and Xiaohua came over, Zhen Feng smiled apologetically and said, How is it? Senior brother Zhen, I've troubled you. My little junior brother insists on going to the medicinal garden. As a senior brother, what can I say? Xiangyang said, Senior brother Zhen, please go to a slightly more convenient place. Sigh, how should I say this? Senior brother Zhen also didn't understand. He looked at Xiaohua and then at Xiangyang. Why did all the stubborn disciples go to your myriad Thunder Valley? Zhen Feng clapped his hands and took out a jade tablet. He tapped it, and the jade tablet emitted a misty green light and flashed with a few diagrams. Zhen Feng looked at it and pointed. My thunderous palace has a total of 34 medicinal gardens. Right now, there are still 6 that no one is looking after. They are slightly closer to my thunderous palace. Oh, if junior brother Xiao is willing, you can wait for a few days. I will give you the medicinal garden closest to thunderous palace. No need, I'll take those 6. Xiaohua shook his head. I just don't know what's the difference between these 6. Zhenfeng glanced at the jade tablet and smiled. These 6 places are all places with insufficient world energy. One of them even has an abandoned earth fire. It's precisely because of this that no one goes there. The others are the same as the other medicinal gardens. Abandoned earth fire? Xiaohua was overjoyed, but he didn't show it. He said, I'll have to trouble Senior to point out these places for me to see. No problem. Seeing Xiaohua still calling him Senior, Zhenfeng lost the thought of roping him in. He straightened his face and pointed out each place. I presume that this medicinal garden with an abandoned earth fire is slightly closer to Myriad Thunder Valley? Xiaohua looked for a while and smiled. Indeed, but it's not very close. Zhenfeng frowned. That medicinal garden was the most barren, and the herbs had long been left to grow on their own. This was indeed not a very good choice. This kind of medicinal garden doesn't turn in a lot of spiritual herbs? Xiaohua smiled. Zhenfeng rolled his eyes and smiled. Others naturally can't be left out, but junior brother Xiao? That's a different story. Xiaohua cupped his hands and gave a rare smile to Zhenfeng. Then I'll have to thank senior brother Zhenfeng. You're welcome, you're welcome. Zhenfeng was immediately overjoyed. He pointed his hand and the medicinal garden changed into another color. He then said, Junior brother Xiao, please wait for a moment. I'll get you the token now. After saying that, he hurriedly left. Damn it. Looking at Zhenfeng's back as he hurriedly left, Xiaohua felt that it was funny. This young master has called this fellow senior so many times, but I don't see him being happy. Why is he so happy when I call him senior brother? Is Qianleizi's token so useful? Just as he was thinking, Xiangyang clapped his hand and took out 1,000 miles sound transmission talisman. He handed it to Xiaohua. Junior brother, this is a sound transmission talisman refined by your senior sister. It's much slower than the lightning sound transmission talisman. However, with your cultivation, you can only use this. Keep it well. If there's any mishap in the medicinal garden, or if there's any trouble, quickly send it out. Xiaohua's heart warmed. He received it and put it into his storage pouch. He smiled and said, Thank you, senior brother. Not long after, Zhenfeng rushed back and handed over a token. He smiled and said, Junior brother Xiao, please keep it well. This token is the certificate to open the Eastern Ridge Medicinal Garden. As for how to use it, it's the same as the other tokens of my Imperial Thunder Sect. And many thanks, senior brother Zhenfeng. Xiaohua received it and smiled. You're welcome, junior brother Xiao. I am very familiar with the Eastern Ridge Medicinal Garden's roads. When are you going? Senior brother will take you there. Zhenfeng's face was full of enthusiasm. No need, senior brother Zhenfeng. Junior brother will go by himself. Xiaohua cupped his hands and bid farewell to Zhenfeng. Zhenfeng actually didn't care about other people's gazes and sent Xiaohua out. After Zhenfeng turned and returned to the Thunder Hall, Xiaohua turned and asked Xiangyang, Senior brother, where is my Thunderous Thunder Palace's cultivation manual and cultivation place? Senior brother Zhenfeng teaches cultivation techniques in the Thunder Hall every day. And the essence is different every day. Sometimes it's basic cultivation techniques, sometimes it's cultivation techniques, and most of the time there are also explanations on alchemy and talisman crafting. The cultivation manual is also in the Thunder Hall. However, junior brother, you can just go and listen to the cultivation manual. Why do you want to find the cultivation manual? Xiangyang's patient explanation was a little strange. Xiaohua smiled but didn't explain. He said, Oh right, senior brother, what cultivation technique do you want to see but can't see? Me? Xiangyang smiled bitterly. Senior brother has only received master's teachings. Senior brother can't completely comprehend his little things. Although other cultivation techniques are good, senior brother has never thought about them. It can't be right. Xiaohua really didn't understand Xiangyang's attitude of not wanting to look at cultivation techniques. When he was outside the Thunder Palace, he tried his best to find cultivation techniques to comprehend. Don't bite off more than you can chew, junior brother. Xiangyang smiled. When you cultivate to foundation establishment, you'll understand this principle. You only need one cultivation technique to cultivate to gold core. Why waste time looking for other cultivation techniques? Oh, so it's like that. Xiaohua suddenly understood why Master Qianlei gave him the command medallion. Although this command medallion allowed him to see the cultivation manual of the 8 Great Thunder Palaces, but could he cultivate it? However, your senior sister has always wanted to obtain the refining method of the invisibility talisman. Unfortunately, that thing is kept in the Thunder Palace and can't be taken out. Junior brother, I'm afraid you have the heart but not the strength, right? Xiangyang said casually. Hey, junior brother thought it was something special. Xiaohua was happy when he heard this. He clapped his hands and took out the refining method of the invisibility talisman. He handed it over and said, No need to go to the Thunder Palace, junior brother has it here. What? Invisibility talisman? Xiangyang was very happy. He took it out and looked at it in disbelief. Unfortunately, how could he understand it? He asked again, How can you have this thing? Senior brother, don't ask about this. First, give this thing to senior sister to comprehend. When you finish practicing, just give it back to junior brother. Xiangyang looked at Xiaohua with a somewhat complicated gaze. He nodded firmly and put the booklet into his pocket. Let's go, senior brother. I'll have to trouble you to take junior brother to the Thunder Palace. Junior brother really does want to look for some ancient books to read, Xiaohua said with a smile. You really want to go? Xiangyang asked curiously. You've just reached Qi refinement. You don't have the qualifications to look at the ancient books in the Thunder Palace. You can only go to Master's Cave to look for cultivation techniques to read. Then don't worry about it. Xiaohua waved his hand as if he was the senior brother. You take junior brother there first. Okay. Although Xiangyang was suspicious, he still took Xiaohua to the Thunder Palace. Along the way, Xiangyang still met many foundation establishment disciples. When those disciples saw Xiangyang, they all smiled. The first thing they asked was about Xiangjili. Xiangyang was also good at self-restraint. He calmly responded with a smile on his face. In the end, even Xiaohua almost believed that Xiangyang, the senior brother of the early foundation establishment stage, would definitely have a deification stage son in the future. Between a steep cliff, there was a huge ancient palace half floating in the clouds. Xiaohua said with a smile. Is this the derived Thunder Palace? Why is it so much more wonderful than the Thunder Palace? Wonderful? Xiangyang, who was in the air, almost laughed out loud. Junior brother used the word wonderful very well. Haha. Xiaohua smiled apologetically. Suddenly he remembered something and said in a low voice. Right, senior brother, that jade slip can be read and written with divine sense, right? Yes, Xiangyang said. Although aura refining stage cultivators have divine sense, they can only read it. If they want to write it, they can only do it at the foundation establishment stage. Or peak aura refining stage cultivators with especially strong divine sense can also do it. Senior brother, do you have these techniques? Xiaohua thought for a moment and asked. Of course I do. This thing is just an ordinary technique for foundation establishment cultivators. All foundation establishment cultivators of my thunder controlling sect have it. Xiangyang clapped his hands and took out a thin booklet. Why are you asking this? Nothing, junior brother is just curious about the mystery of this technique. I want to see the trick. Xiaohua stared at the booklet and asked. Junior brother won't give senior brother any trouble with this technique, right? How is that possible? Xiangyang handed it to Xiaohua. This thing is just a waste paper in the thunder controlling sect. What kind of trouble will there be? That's good. Xiaohua took it and carefully put it away. Not long after, Xiaohua and Xiangyang arrived in front of the Yanlei Palace. This was not the time to pass on techniques. The entire Yanlei Palace was covered in a layer of light purple brilliance. Layers of ripples were rippling within it, as if the entire Yanlei Palace was under the water. Xiangyang walked closer and waved his hand. A red brilliance flew into the brilliance. After a moment, the brilliance was torn apart. A foundation establishment middle-stage cultivator slowly walked out. Looking at Xiaohua and Xiangyang, he frowned and said, "This is not the time to pass on techniques. Do the two of you have any business?" "Senior brother, I am Xiangyang from the Myriad Thunder Valley. This is my junior brother Xiaohua." Xiangyang stepped forward and cupped his hands. Of course I know you're Xiangyang." The disciple didn't mention anything about Xiang Zhili. He nodded slightly and said, "Could it be that junior brother Xiang wants to enter the technique imparting pavilion to comprehend other techniques?" Xiaohua hurriedly stepped forward and clapped his hands. He took out the sect master's token and said with a smile, "It's not about senior brother. Junior wants to enter the technique imparting pavilion." "You?" The cultivator stared blankly. With a wave of his hand, the sect master's token appeared in his hand. As he examined it with his divine sense, a trace of amazement appeared in the cultivator's eyes. He then returned the sect master's token to Xiaohua and said with a nod, "Since you have the sect master's token, you can naturally enter and take a look. However, Xiaohua, you're only allowed to examine this sect master's token in the technique imparting pavilion. You can't take any ancient books and other things out of the Yanlei Palace." "Good." Xiaohua clapped his hands and said with a smile, "Then with this sect master's token, can I occasionally enter the technique imparting pavilions of the other 7 lightning palaces to take a look?" The sect master's token is issued to the attendants of each lightning palace. You can naturally enter with this sect master's token. The foundation establishment cultivator recovered his previous calmness and said, "Xiaohua, do you want to enter and take a look now?" "No need. Thank you, senior." Xiaohua bowed and thanked him happily in his heart. Knowing that Xiaohua only wanted to see if this sect master's token was effective, the foundation establishment cultivator looked at Xiaohua with disdain. He nodded and was about to turn around. "That's right, senior, please wait a moment." Xiaohua suddenly thought of something and said urgently, "Xiaohua, what else do you want? Junior has just arrived. I want to ask, does our technique imparting pavilion have the 5 elements escape technique?" 5 elements escape technique? Of course there is. The foundation establishment cultivator nodded. When you reach the foundation establishment stage, your master will naturally impart this 5 elements escape technique to you. Xiaohua said curiously, 5 elements escape technique. Aren't there 5 types of escape techniques? Of course not. My Imperial Thunder Sect only has the 5 elements escape technique. There are no separate 5 elements escape techniques. The foundation establishment cultivator said with a smile. As long as you use the 5 elements escape technique, all of the 5 elements in this world can escape. Why would you need to cultivate them one by one? Oh, what senior says makes sense. Xiaohua nodded. Then the lightning escape technique. Can I look at it now? Of course you can. Do you want to go in? The foundation establishment cultivator nodded in response. At this moment, Xiangyang tugged on Xiaohua's sleeves. Chapter 1551. Seeing Xiangyang pull on Xiaohua's sleeve, the foundation establishment cultivator naturally knew what Xiangyang meant. The corner of his mouth slightly twitched as he said, "The lightning escape technique is unique to our lightning sect. Any disciple who has the aptitude to practice the lightning escape technique is encouraged to practice it. Your Myriad Thunder Valley naturally also has this technique. You should wait for senior brother Wuxia to teach you the most basic 5 elements escape technique before you consider the lightning escape technique." "Oh, thank you for your guidance. Disciple won't be going in today." Xiaohua bowed and thanked him. That foundation establishment cultivator nodded and disappeared in a flash of light. Xiangyang pulled Xiaohua and flew away. He whispered, "Why are you looking at the lightning escape technique? That technique can only be practiced by foundation establishment cultivators. If it's not of the lightning attribute, it's extremely difficult to practice. I'm only at the entry level and haven't mastered it yet. I don't dare to use it normally." "Senior brother, do you have this technique?" Xiaohua smiled. "I do, but it's in my cave." Xiangyang asked curiously, "What do you want it for?" If it's convenient for senior brother. How about you give it to me tomorrow? Xiaohua giggled. Master told me to guide you in your cultivation. This thing. Sigh, even if I don't give it to you, you can find it in the Technique Inheritance Pavilion. Why wouldn't I give it to you? Xiangyang smiled and said, Go back to Zhenlei Palace first. Tomorrow, I'll bring you to the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden and give it to you. Aren't we going to Eastern Ridge now? Xiaohua asked curiously. Of course not today. Let's wait for tomorrow. Xiangyang looked at the sky and said, I still have something to do, so I won't bring you back to Zhenlei Palace. Do you remember the way back? Please go ahead, senior brother. Although I don't remember it clearly, I can still ask someone. Xiaohua cupped his hands and said, Okay, I'll come back tomorrow. Xiangyang's figure flew up as if he really did have something urgent. When he was in the air, he said, I thank you on behalf of your senior sister. Hee, you're welcome, you're welcome. Looking at Xiangyang's figure that left in a hurry, Xiaohua smiled for no reason and secretly said, This eldest senior brother is rather interesting. I'm afraid it's hard to find someone with this kind of character in the entire Donrain continent. After that, Xiaohua identified the direction and flew towards Zhenlei Palace at a leisurely pace. But after flying for 2 hours, Xiaohua was at a loss. He really was lost. The Lei Mo mountain range where the Imperial Thunder sect was located was extremely large. There were many towering peaks and continuous forests. Many places looked similar, with Xiaohua's very low sense of direction, and they were exactly the same. As expected, I got lost again. Xiaohua felt extremely helpless. Looking at this unfamiliar place, he scratched his head and looked around. Unfortunately, he didn't know where this place was. The barren hills and unruly rivers beneath his feet were far from the usual fairyland. Motherfucker, could it have flown out of the Imperial Thunder sect? Xiaohua didn't dare to fly forward anymore. He turned around and prepared to fly back. However, just as he flew for the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the scene in front of him suddenly changed at a rapid speed. The magic power in his body was imprisoned at the same time. His body plummeted down like a stone. Ouch! Xiaohua cried out in his heart. He knew he had fallen into someone else's formation. Just as he was about to struggle, a silhouette hurriedly flew over from afar. It was a late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator, using lightning escape. Senior Xiaohua had just called out when he immediately stopped. Setting up a formation in this desolate and uninhabited place. There must be some kind of scheme. Wouldn't it be ruining other people's plans for him to barge in unknowingly? He didn't even consider how to escape. Instead, he wanted the other party to save him. Wasn't that a fool's dream? Looking at the cultivator again, he had a round face. His eyebrows were slightly drooping from the corners of his eyes. Below his eyebrows, his eyes were slightly narrowed. His 2 gray pupils flashed with an astonished expression. Ha! How could an aura-refining disciple appear here? When the cultivator scanned with his divine sense, he immediately understood. He muttered to himself and urged the magic power in his body to activate the formation to kill Xiaohua. But right at that moment, the cultivator's expression slightly changed. He slightly tilted his head and looked in another direction. He said in a low voice, The time has come. That guy really did keep his promise. If I kill this little disciple, I'm afraid it'll cause a change in the spiritual aura of heaven and earth. As he said that, the cultivator changed the hand seal in his hand and attacked Xiaohua. Xiaohua, who had fallen into the air, felt his body tighten. He couldn't even move. Soon after, he felt light again and drifted down like a feather. Soon after, the cultivator hastily took out a small triangular flag from his storage pouch and urged his magic power to wave it a few times in the air. Several rays of light flashed and Xiaohua's figure disappeared. Everything in the surroundings also returned to its original state. Not even the slightest fluctuation of spiritual aura of heaven and earth leaked out. Once everything was done, the cultivator carefully put away the small flag and used his divine sense to scan the surroundings again. Only then did he fly in another direction. Why am I so unlucky? Xiaohua was imprisoned by a late-stage foundation building cultivator. He was like a little chick without the slightest power to resist. The magic power in his body couldn't be mobilized in the slightest. He could only use his pure physical strength to struggle, wanting to break free from the shackles. Unfortunately, the opponent had a late-stage foundation building Cultivator's great confinement technique and the power of a formation. How could Xiaohua struggle? After several attempts, he couldn't even move his fingers. Xiaohua could only give up dejectedly and think of another way. That formation was also mysterious. Xiaohua's figure couldn't be seen from the outside, but from Xiaohua's point of view, he could see the scene outside the formation. Moreover, the sound of the wind passing through the air indicated that he could still hear that voice. Is this late-stage foundation building cultivator from the Imperial Thunder sect? And since he knows the lightning evasion technique, he should be from the Imperial Thunder sect. But which Thunder Palace is he from? Why did he set up an ambush here? In this critical moment, Xiaohua unconsciously thought of many things in his mind. But in the end, Xiaohua unconsciously became discouraged. His grandmother, no matter what this guy wants to do, in the end, I'm afraid I'll become a ghost under his hands. Heavens, how can I be so unlucky? It was like this in Yellow Flower Ridge. Just as I saw the dawn of cultivation, and could use the Peiyuan pill to cultivate to the second layer of the aura refining realm, Shang Huaming was exterminated by the 100 Herbs sect. Thanks to Senior Marshal's sister, I escaped from Yellow Flower Ridge with great difficulty. Then I met Heaven Forsaken. I originally thought I could cultivate some kind of cultivation technique in Heaven Forsaken, but Heaven Forsaken was a devil's trap. Fortunately, my character was good. I met Li Zongbao and Kai Wuxia and escaped from 100 Zhang Peak. Then, with great difficulty, I found an opportunity to participate in the disciple selection of Rinsing Flower sect. I spent a lot of effort to fight for the opportunity, but it was snatched away by Rinsing Flower sect's predetermined disciple. Then, with great difficulty, I obtained a cultivation technique from the auction. I was preparing to find a place to cultivate in peace. But for the Fire Essence Flame Crystal, I had no choice but to go to Flame Forest Swamp. In the end, I obtained the Fire Essence Flame Crystal, but Kai Wuxia lost her life. I simply sent Kai Wuxia's body to Luyang. But unfortunately, I met the Kai family's Grand Elder, and was chased by him until I pissed my pants. Fortunately, I was not destined to die and met Qian Qinghua. But, who would have thought that this guy was also not a good person? He placed a restriction on my meridians, and gave me the clear flower pill. I had no choice but to give him the thunder-devouring bead. Damn it, I was being hunted down by the 3 major sects in the country of Xi. Those were 4 foundation establishment cultivators. I'm afraid no one would believe me if I told them. Sigh, was it easy for me to get to Thunderclap Peak? I passed 3 tests, tested my attributes, tested my bone age, and even passed through an illusion array. It was not easy for me to enter the Imperial Thunder sect. I finally had a master to guide me, and I even met a good senior martial brother. I thought I could embark on the normal path of cultivation from now on. But why am I so unlucky? Taking the wrong path can even bring about a fatal disaster? Sigh, I'm afraid I won't be able to see the beautiful Red Dawn Fairy again. I wonder how her cultivation in the Huanhua sect is going? Sigh, Shue, I brought you to the Imperial Thunder sect. I wonder if you'll still remember to follow me when you become a foundation establishment cultivator in a few years. Xiaohua's imagination was running wild. His mind was filled with Fairy Hongxia's fairy-like beauty for a while, Shue's curvy figure and shy face for a while, and even the graceful and luxurious face of that mysterious goddess appeared for some inexplicable reason. But at this moment, Xiaohua suddenly quivered. He thought of Goldie who was in his space. The heavens have not forsaken me. Xiaohua suddenly had a ray of hope. Xiaohua himself could not move, but there were things in his space that could move. Goldie and the puppet could help him, right? However, Xiaohua was only pleasantly surprised for a moment, before he became dejected again. Goldie and the puppet were in the space, so his mind could also enter the space. However, he used to use his hands to hold things. Now he could not even move his hands, so how could he hold things? Sigh, pitiful Goldie, your mother is going to be finished soon. I wonder if you can still live. Xiaohua thought, and his mind entered the space. However, when he saw everything in the space, he could not help but be dumbstruck. What do you think? He saw a clever little white mouse flying around in a range of several zhang. Goldie was curled up in the middle of this range. The little white mouse ran in front of Goldie and used its nose to rub against Goldie's big tail. Then, it flew on Goldie's back and used its small tail to curl around Goldie's back. After a while, it rushed into the air and chirped towards tracing back the light above its head. Because of the little white mouse flying around, the entire space was filled with a strange vitality. Immediately, Xiaohua's gloomy mood became much better. Goldie? What is this guy doing? Xiaohua asked in a low voice. Hee, this thing thinks I'm its mother. Goldie was still somewhat weak, and said in a low voice. I remember that a few days ago, it was still not awake. How come it's so lively today? How would I know, mother? In any case, when it woke up, it circled around me and was very affectionate with me. Goldie did not need to open its mouth, so it spoke smoothly. I was afraid it would mess up mother's things, so I didn't let it go far away. It really listened to me. Xiaohua said, and again paid attention to the seeking spirit mouse. This spirit-seeking mouse looked exactly the same as the one Xiaohua had seen in the sobbing Meng Mountains. However, on the tip of this spirit-seeking mouse's nose, there was an indistinct golden line. Chapter 1553. Chirp chirp. Chirp chirp. The spirit-seeking mouse seemed to have sensed something and stopped flying in midair. It raised its small head and looked around in a daze, its small nose twitching incessantly. Ai, pitiful little guy, it can only move now. I'm afraid it'll have to follow me. Xiaohua was sad again. He looked at the things in the space and the reverse light in midair, and withdrew his consciousness. Since I can use my hands to, Xiaohua naturally didn't give up. He was still thinking, but just as his consciousness withdrew, he suddenly realized something. Damn it, I'm such an idiot. I use my hands to take things because I'm a person with hands. I'm naturally used to using my hands. Moreover, I only thought of using my hands when I saw other cultivators use their hands to take things out of storage bags. However, my space is different from a storage bag. My hands can't reach into the space, so how can I use my hands to take things out? I'm just used to using my hands to do this, so I naturally think I'm using my hands to take things out of the space. The thing that's really taking things out of the space isn't my hands, but my consciousness. Thinking of this, Xiaohua was pleasantly surprised and apprehensive. He hurriedly sent his consciousness into the space. He didn't dare to try using Goldie and the puppet first, so he only locked his consciousness onto a spirit stone. Soon after, his imprisoned left hand naturally struggled, and the spirit stone strangely appeared in Xiaohua's left hand. Haha, I told you this young master is a genius. Xiaohua immediately laughed in his heart, but just as he put the spirit stone into the space and wanted to take Goldie and the puppet out, the sound of something breaking through the air came from above his head. Crap, that guy came back so quickly. Xiaohua hurriedly stopped his movements and closed his eyes. He immediately released his perception, but unfortunately, it was blocked by the formation after only a few dozen feet. At this time, two people's voices came from above Xiaohua's head. One of them was the person who set up the formation. That person laughed and said, Senior Martial Brother Qin Mingwei, what do you think of this place? My Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples rarely come here, right? Another slightly older voice said, What Junior Brother Jinxia is looking for is really a wonderful place. The spiritual energy here is scarce, so no one will stay here for long. If there's anything in the future, let's meet here. Sure. We'll do as Senior Apprentice Brother Qin says. May I know why Junior Martial Brother Zhen sent this message? Hee, what else could it be? I wonder if Senior Apprentice Brother Qin was able to find out the origin of that item in the Canlei Palace? Where is Junior Martial Brother Zhen? Does your Thunderclap Palace have any records of this? Qin Mingwei asked. Sigh, if I found out, would I still be able to ask Senior Martial Brother? I feel the same, Qin Mingwei said regretfully. I have flipped through almost all the books and records in the Canlei Palace's martial teaching pavilion, and also asked many masters indirectly, but I couldn't find any trace of it. Don't tell me. The thing we've worked so hard to find is a piece of trash. Evil Zhen hesitated. Why don't we take it to the faction leader? Perhaps the old man would know? If it's really a treasure, we can offer it to the faction leader. I'm afraid we can get some rewards. This Qin Mingwei rolled his eyes, cupped his hands and said, Junior Marshal Brother Zhen is really smart. I have never thought about this problem. I always wanted to keep it for myself and find out the origin of this treasure together with Junior Marshal Brother Zhen. Hee, I naturally want to do the same. Evil Zhen nodded. It's a pity that this thing has 36 slots. Only 17 of them have something in them. Who knows where the other 19 slots have things in them? If we can't find out the origin of this treasure, we won't be able to find the other 16 things. Since that's the case, we might as well show it to the faction leader. Alright, since Junior Marshal Brother Zhen has the same idea as I, let's go to the 10,000 Thunder Palace, Qin Mingwei said with a smile. Senior Marshal Brother Qin, what about the treasure? Of course Qin Mingwei nodded slightly. But at this moment, Evil Zhen turned his head and released his divine sense, sweeping it towards the magic array. He shouted, Who is it? Then, without calling out to Qin Mingwei, he flew towards the spell formation. Who is it? Qin Mingwei was also shocked. Seeing Evil Zhen fly up, he patted his hand and took out a flying sword from his storage bag. He used his Dharma power, and the flying sword grew to 1 foot long. He held it in his hand and chased after Evil Zhen. Naturally, when Qin Mingwei flew above the magic array, Evil Zhen had already left the range of the magic array. When Evil Zhen saw Qin Mingwei enter the magic array, he immediately stopped and took out a small triangular flag. He spread it in the air and a misty green light hit the magic array. With a swoosh, a ray of light appeared from the ground and blocked Qin Mingwei in the magic array. Qin Mingwei was also a late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator. When he saw Evil Zhen's strange behavior, he immediately became vigilant and hurriedly flew back. Unfortunately, he was still a step too late. The misty green light happened to block his way. Qin Mingwei was shocked. He used his divine sense to see the whole magic array clearly. He also saw Xiaohua, who seemed to be motionless under the magic array. His expression changed greatly and he shouted, Junior Marshal Brother Zhen, what are you doing? Ha 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 ha. When Evil Zhen saw the misty green light form a ball and cover Qin Mingwei, he laughed and spread out the small flag again. In the space inside the magic array, layers of fine orange flames appeared and surrounded Qin Mingwei. Senior Marshal Brother Qin, don't tell me you don't know what I'm doing. Qin Mingwei's expression was gloomy. He sneered and said, Junior Marshal Brother Zhen, you set up a trap here and lured I into the magic array. Do you want to kill me and keep that thing for yourself? What? Could it be that Senior Marshal Brother Qin didn't have this idea? Evil Zhen sneered and said, Didn't Senior Marshal Brother Qin take advantage of the fact that I was injured at the Buddhist sect's ruins to make the first move and keep the exquisite pagoda in your own storage pouch? If I didn't pretend to be uninjured and let Senior Marshal Brother Qin take the exquisite pagoda, wouldn't Senior Marshal Brother Qin have already killed I? Ah, you're actually injured? Qin Mingwei was somewhat astonished. He then snorted and said, You really know the origin of this thing. Could it be that Senior Marshal Brother Qin doesn't know? Evil Zhen said complacently, My Thunderquake Palace certainly doesn't have any records of the Buddhist sect. Your Thunderquake Palace probably doesn't either. But what about Thunderquake Palace and Thunderquake Palace? This exquisite pagoda was the most famous Buddhist treasure before the Buddhist sect was annihilated. How could my Thunderquake sect not have any records of it? Even if Junior Marshal Brother Zhen knows that this is the exquisite pagoda, but you wouldn't go so far as to kill I, right? We certainly know that this is the exquisite pagoda, and also know that it's the most precious treasure of the Buddhist sect. But we don't know how to use it, and whether it's useful to our cultivation. Qin Mingwei looked at Evil Zhen with bright eyes and said angrily, Since it's a precious treasure, how could 2 people obtain it? Evil Zhen chuckled and waved the small flag. He said, I told you so much. The flames of this greenly fire formation are about to burn out. Senior Marshal Brother Qin, take care. I won't be seeing you off. As the small flag waved, the countless flames around Qin Mingwei's body grew larger, burning towards Qin Mingwei. Haha, Evil Zhen, you know that I have the leaf fire physique. How could I be afraid of your green leaf fire formation? As he spoke, Qin Mingwei waved his hand and took out a disc-like object from his storage bag. He formed a seal with his hand, and the crimson disc flew into the air and landed on top of Qin Mingwei's head. Soon after, a circle of cyan flames emerged from the edge of the disc and quickly protected Qin Mingwei's body. However, the situation was still beyond Qin Mingwei's expectations. When the orange and cyan flames collided, they didn't separate as he expected. Instead, the orange flames began to devour the cyan flames and the outermost flames turned cyan red. Qian fire? Where did you get it? You clearly have a thunder physique. Qin Mingwei was shocked and spat out a mouthful of true essence on the disc. More cyan flames flew out from the disc. These flames fell, and the cyan red color was greatly reduced. You don't need to know where I got the Qian fire. If I didn't have the Qian fire to restrain your Li fire, how could I have dared to act rashly? Zhenxia laughed and waved the small flag. All of the heaven and earthling qi within 10 feet of the formation was sucked dry. The orange flame became even brighter, and like a wave of fire, it rushed towards the green Li fire. Go, within the circle of fire, Qin Mingwei shouted. The flying sword in his hand turned into a ray of light and flew towards Evil Zhen. With a pu, the formation's brilliance blocked the flying sword. The brilliance shook for a moment. Then the flying sword flourished like a dazzling star and fiercely attacked the brilliance of the formation. Evil Zhen frowned when he saw this. He clenched his teeth and bit the tip of his tongue. He spat a mouthful of blood on the small flag. Then, with a shake, the cyan brilliance mixed with the red light hit the formation. Suddenly, a huge suction force appeared around the formation and sucked in all the spirit energy within 100 feet of the formation. Although the flying sword was able to advance another foot or so, it was still blocked by the green-red light barrier. Hee. Evil Zhen was relieved when he saw this. He sneered and said, Senior brother Can, I set up this formation because I was afraid that fighting with you would attract the attention of the other brothers. This green Li fire formation is something I specially set up to deal with your Li fire physique. Don't resist and don't take out any magic tools. Just obediently let the Qian fire burn you. Ouch. At this point, Evil Zhen's face greatly changed and became abnormally pale. Large beads of sweat rolled down his forehead. The hand that wasn't holding the flag clutched his heart, as if someone was squeezing it. Ha ha. Within the green Li fire formation, Qin Mingwei's laughter sounded. Chapter 1554. The green-red dry fire gradually turned transparent, and Qin Mingwei's figure appeared from within. He held a pitch-black hook in his hand, and there was a dense grayish-black aura on the hook. The black aura was like a snake slithering around the hook. How is it? How does the heart-devouring worm taste? Qin Mingwei asked gloomily. This is a heart-devouring worm? How did you plant this heart-devouring worm in my heart? How come I didn't notice it? Evil Zhen's face was pale, and his head was covered in sweat. His eyes were red and he asked fiercely, Look at your technique. It's not the usual technique of the 10,000 poison sect. How come it's similar to the legendary talismans? How could Qin Mingwei care about him? He waved the hook in his hand, and the grayish-black gas faded a bit. At the same time his face turned slightly gray. Evil Zhen screamed and fell to the ground. He barely managed to stabilize himself. At this time, Qin Mingwei's face was red and the hook in his hand was trembling. The grayish-black gas was gradually absorbed into the hook. It seemed that he couldn't completely control the hook. Evil Zhen felt the pain in his heart lessen. He quickly sat down cross-legged and wanted to use his magic power. Hee, Evil Zhen, I didn't expect you to know about talismans. I'm afraid these years, you found a story in the technique teaching pavilion. Qin Mingwei was a bit weak and his voice was hoarse. However, you have good eyesight. I used a talisman technique. If I were you, I wouldn't use my magic power. Otherwise, the heart-devouring worm would be even more powerful. Evil Zhen ignored him. However, when he tried to use his magic power, he felt a heart-wrenching pain again. His face changed and he stopped. Then Evil Tremor looked at Qin Mingwei, who was inside the cyan fire, and sighed. Ever since I came back from the ruins of the Buddhist sect, I've only seen senior martial brother Qin once, 10 years ago. I've always been on my guard, So how could I have fallen into your trap? Senior brother's heart-devouring worm. Ha ha ha, Qin Mingwei laughed heartily and said in a hoarse voice, Junior martial brother Zhen, do you still remember the pill I gave you when you were injured by the guardian beast in the ruins of the Buddhist sect 30 years ago? Evil Zhen was puzzled. Remember? When I brought it over to take a look, it was to return it to senior brother. Suddenly, Evil Zhen's eyes flashed fiercely as he gritted his teeth and said, could it be that senior brother can place the heart corrosion worm on the elixir that day? Hee, what do you think? Qin Mingwei smiled and said, Junior apprentice brother Zhen is clearly injured, but you didn't take elder brother's medicinal pills. Doesn't that mean you still have the heart to let her go? I didn't harm anyone either. Unlike senior apprentice brother Can, who can actually cast a spell and make I fall for it without anyone noticing. Now that I's life is in senior apprentice brother's hands, you call this guarding against people? Ha ha ha, Qin Mingwei laughed coldly. Junior brother Zhen, this is the pot calling the kettle black. I may have cast a spell, but that was to protect myself. If not for senior apprentice brother's trap, how could I have triggered the heart corrosion worm? Junior martial brother Zhen, haven't you thought about why senior apprentice brother, I didn't trigger the heart corrosion worm even after 30 years? Isn't it because you haven't found the origin of the exquisite tower yet? You don't dare to act recklessly. Evil Zhen's expression softened as he sneered. The green fire around Qin Mingwei grew thinner and thinner as the orange fire swallowed up half of the green fire. Qin Mingwei's expression was bitter as he said, if junior martial brother Zhen reduces the power of the azurely fire array, I can answer your questions. Thinking for a moment, Evil Zhen took out a small flag and waved it, causing the orange fire to weaken a bit. I am listening. I don't know how many years this spell technique has been lost. When I was refining Qi, I accidentally obtained this soul tool and learned some spell techniques. Unfortunately, cultivating spells is different from my cultivation path. Cultivation focuses on communicating with heaven and earth, and using the heaven and earth spiritual energy for one's own use. Spells, on the other hand, are related to the mysterious path of the soul. The soul is born in the body and tempering the soul. The foundation of cultivating spells is tempering the body. The body of a cultivator is extremely weak, so how can I cultivate spells? Senior martial brother Can, you can cultivate body cultivation. Evil Zhen replied. At this moment, the two of them were completely different from before. They didn't look like two mortal enemies. If it weren't for the fact that one of them was in the fire, and the other was sitting in the air with a strange expression on his face, anyone who saw them would have thought that they were two real martial brothers who were discussing Tao. Body cultivation? Those were merely some insignificant Taos left behind after the decline of the Tao of Talismans. I am already a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator, so there is no need for me to take the wrong path. Qin Mingwei snorted. This heart-nibbling worm was originally a method of the 10,000 Poisons sect. If you used a normal method, I would have been able to detect it. How did senior martial brother Can use the spell technique? Evil Zhen asked thoughtfully. Qin Mingwei replied. This is something that I have learned over the years, so I naturally can't reveal it. In fact, it is very simple. Since my body isn't strong enough to cultivate spells, I naturally have to use it in a flexible way. Using the spell technique to control the heart-nibbling worm. Even a golden core cultivator wouldn't be able to detect it, right? Evil Zhen sneered. Unfortunately, although I can use the spell technique to control the heart-nibbling worm, the price to do so is far from what junior martial brother Zhen can imagine. Therefore, although I have a backup plan, I haven't used it yet. Qin Mingwei sighed and looked at the flames around him. He then looked at Evil Zhen, who was outside the formation, and said, I have told you so much because I want to tell you that I am only doing this to protect myself. If junior martial brother Zhen removes this formation, I will immediately remove the heart-nibbling worm. You and I will still be good brothers. We will both comprehend this exquisite tower together. And Evil Zhen slowly nodded. Senior martial brother Can's words are exactly what I was thinking. We have a great future, and also have a Buddhist sect's treasure. There is no need for us to waste our time here. Qin Mingwei was overjoyed and clapped his hands. Great minds think alike. How about we cast the spell together? All right. Evil Quake slowly stood up and picked up the small flag. Qin Mingwei also raised the small hook, and the grayish-black fog came out again. As soon as Evil Zhen raised the flag, Qin Mingwei asked, Senior Marshal Brother Qin, what is the price for using the heart-nibbling worm? Qin Mingwei was surprised. The hook in his hand paused for a moment. I'm afraid Junior Marshal Brother won't believe me. Senior Marshal Brother, it's up to me whether or not you believe me. Evil Zhen raised the flag again. 20 years of life, Qin Mingwei said and raised the hook in his hand. Evil Zhen's expression didn't change, but his eyes narrowed slightly. Nodding, he said, All right, Senior Marshal Brother Kansas. I will count to 3 and cast the spell at the same time. All right. 1, 2, 3. Evil Zhen didn't hesitate to count to 3. Once he finished counting to 3, the two of them would use their artifacts and soul armaments at the same time. Dozens of orange-red rays of light shot out from the small flag, but these rays of light didn't hit the area around the formation. Instead, they hit the orange-red flames around Qin Mingwei. At the same time, all of the black fog around Qin Mingwei's hook disappeared. Evil Zhen let out a heart-wrenching scream and spat out a mouthful of black blood. Inside the formation, the orange-red light shone everywhere. The fire was 10 times stronger than before and broke through Qin Mingwei's defenses. The orange-red flames quickly spread to Qin Mingwei's body. The two of them, both of them wanted to kill the other in an instant. Qin Mingwei was also shocked. He knew very well that this dry flame was the nemesis of his ignited fire physique. If the ignited fire true qi in his body was ignited by this dry flame, he would have no way to extinguish it. He would only end up being burned to death by this dry flame. Thinking about the blood oath he had made with Evil Zhen in the ruins of the Buddhist sect, Qin Mingwei's heart tightened. He desperately urged the little hook to kill Evil Zhen before the dry flame ignited his true qi. If Qin Mingwei was like this, how could Evil Zhen not be like this? When Evil Zhen heard that Qin Mingwei would lose 20 years of his lifespan to activate the soul-devouring worm, he didn't know if that was true or not. Since Qin Mingwei had paid such a huge price to activate the soul-devouring worm, how could he give up so easily? Activating the soul-devouring worm was already a huge price, but what about getting rid of it? Wouldn't the price be even higher? Moreover, talismans were very mysterious. Without a powerful spell, it was impossible to detect them. This was one of the reasons why the talismans were destroyed. Evil Zhen wouldn't let such a dangerous enemy escape from the formation he had set up. As a result, Evil Zhen was even more determined to kill Qin Mingwei. He had already used up all of his energy to activate the flag. He wanted to kill Qin Mingwei before the soul-devouring worm was fully activated. Whoosh! Evil Zhen's body fell rapidly. He was in so much pain that he couldn't stand still in the air. The talisman's method was really strange. When Evil Zhen was talking to Qin Mingwei, he had already tried several secret techniques of the Imperial Thunder Sect, but none of them worked. Through the control of the formation, Evil Zhen knew that the fire was about to reach Qin Mingwei. He also knew that all of Qin Mingwei's magic tools and other items were refined with Li fire. If he used them, they would undoubtedly be combustible. Qin Mingwei wouldn't rashly use them. Evil Zhen endured the incomparable pain in his heart and waved his hand. He struck himself with a spell seal and spat out a mouthful of blood onto the small flag. He quickly waved his hand, and a gorgeous orange light shot out from the small flag. As the light shot out, the small flag lost its color. Evil Zhen's heart was in severe pain and his vision turned black. His entire body fell from the air. A late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator was easily killed by a strange talisman without any room to resist. Presumably, Evil Zhen wouldn't be able to rest in peace. He had so many tricks up his sleeve that he didn't even have the chance to use before he became the soul-devouring worm's food. Evil Tremor's final attack before his death was also frightening. When the light landed on the orange flames, the flames doubled in size. Qin Mingwei was surrounded by an orange sea of flames. Seeing that he couldn't dodge, Qin Mingwei clenched his teeth and took out a shiny talisman from his storage pouch. He activated his Fa Li and placed it on his body. With a buzzing sound, an extremely bright light flashed from Qin Mingwei's body. Within the light, Qin Mingwei's upper body gradually changed. His face, neck, and arms were covered in layers of fine lines. Moreover, his slightly pale golden skin turned green. After the light faded, a monster that looked somewhat similar to a giant she-beast appeared in the air. Its body was actually several feet taller than before. Roar! At this moment, Qin Mingwei's roar was different. It was like a horse's roar. His huge body charged through the flames and flew towards the formation's light barrier. However, just as Qin Mingwei's huge body passed through the sea of fire, the dry fire ignited his entire body. However, his green skin was thick and coarse, and it actually had the effect of blocking the dry fire. For a moment, it was unable to burn into his meridians. Rumble! Qin Mingwei flew in front of the formation. He raised his large fist and smashed it at the light barrier. Deafening sounds continuously came from the light barrier. The light barrier violently shook and showed signs of loosening. Qin Mingwei's divine sense sensed something and was overjoyed. His two fists rained down like raindrops. As the light barrier shook, the light gradually weakened. Without anyone controlling it, the formation truly began to collapse. However, as the light from the formation weakened, the green light on Qin Mingwei's body also weakened. The patterns on his exposed skin also gradually disappeared. True fear appeared in Qin Mingwei's eyes. As he struck the formation with one fist, his other hand continuously formed seals in an attempt to extinguish the flames. However, Qin Mingwei didn't dare to use any fire-type spells. As for water-type defensive spells, only powerful ones had some effect. However, these effects were like a cup of water in the seemingly endless sea of flames. Roar! Qin Mingwei raised his head and roared. He didn't think of anything else and continued to strike the formation with his two fists. Gotcha! A crisp sound rang out, and a slight crack appeared on the light barrier of the formation. Qin Mingwei was overjoyed. Just as he was about to strike the crack with his fist again, the green light on his body suddenly faded. At the same time, a dim talisman floated down from his body. No, Qin Mingwei panicked. He reached out his hand to grab the talisman, but at that moment, he saw a wisp of fiery light sweep across his body. His gradually shrinking body immediately began to burn like dry firewood. Qin Mingwei could sense that the quintessential qi in his meridians had been ignited as well. The fire began to burn from the inside out. Although he knew that evil tremor was no longer alive outside the formation, he still sighed. He slapped his hand and took out a small hook from his storage bag. Before he died, he waved it one last time. Chapter 1555. Two late-stage Foundation establishment cultivators were both wounded in front of Xiaohua. One was strangely killed by the mind-corroding worm, and the other was burned to death by the dry fire. Xiaohua was originally lying on the ground of the spell formation, playing dead. However, as the two continued to act more and more brilliantly, Xiaohua couldn't help but open his eyes and perk up his ears to watch the show. At this time, the sky was already dusk. The setting sun shone in the west with its blood-like splendor. The dusk in the shadows of the surrounding mountains covered the spell formation. Not far from Xiaohua, the flame was still emitting its last blazing heat in the air. Alas, where there are people, there will be fighting. Master's wife is absolutely right. Xiaohua was deeply moved. Although these two late-stage Foundation establishment cultivators didn't release their pressure, neither of them looked at Xiaohua. However, their fighting methods, the power of the talismans, the effects of the talismans, and the terror of the dry fire all made Xiaohua shudder. Xiaohua deeply knew that even if he didn't use this spell formation, he wouldn't be able to last 10 moves against these two. 30 years, these two really could endure silently. For that so-called Buddhist treasure, in the end, the two still lost their lives. The talisman technique, which is the sinister technique of Jingbei City's Zhu clan, is really powerful. Late-stage Foundation establishment cultivators don't even have the strength to fight back. However, the price of using the talisman technique is too high. 20 years of life. Alas, no matter how powerful the talisman technique is, it's not as powerful as this Qin Mingwei's scheming. He made the first move 30 years ago. In comparison, this evil tremor is much worse. What was the crystal chip that Qin Mingwei used before he died? It looks similar to the Yunqing talisman that Li Zongbao used at that time. Could it be a talisman? Yes, it should be. I'm afraid it's some spirit beast's fur and blood that caused the body to mutate and produce great strength. This kind of strength is 10 times more powerful than the Vajra talisman, but it's much weaker than this young master's strength. Hehe. The lifespan talisman technique, what Buddhist treasure, still depends on luck. Even late-stage foundation establishment cultivators don't have the fortune to enjoy it, right? The death of a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator greatly stimulated Xiaohua. Xiaohua couldn't help but think a lot. As the last ray of light from the setting sun disappeared from the earth, Xiaohua suddenly woke up. Damn it, what was I thinking? The two old things are dead, but I'm still trapped by the formation. Looking at the situation, if I can't escape by myself, I can only wait to be discovered. Let's not talk about whether they'll kill me to silence me if they think about the benefits. Even if it's the talisman spell or the Buddhist sect's treasures, I won't have a share in them. Making a prompt decision, Xiaohua sent his consciousness into the space and called Goldie out. Mother, when Little Yellow heard Xiaohua's words, he was very puzzled. Needless to say, he didn't understand anything about restrictions or formations. He could only look at Xiaohua blankly. Little Huang, look, Mother can't even move. Her body is tied up by something. Come and help Mother untie it. Xiaohua thought for a long time and could only say this. Xiaohua originally wanted to say something else, but something that made him flabbergasted happened. He saw Little Yellow first look around with his eyes in confusion, then reluctantly fly to Xiaohua's body and spin around for a while before landing in front of Xiaohua. Then he threw himself on the ground and closed his eyes, looking very tired. Poor child. Xiaohua couldn't bear it. Just as he was about to let Little Yellow go back, the tightly shut third eye on Little Yellow's forehead gradually opened. That silvery white eye emitted an extremely faint silver brilliance. Following that emotionless eye circling around Xiaohua's body, Little Yellow's third eye slowly closed. Then Little Yellow didn't open his eyes, but said very weakly, Mother, I don't have any strength left. Can you call Little Silver out? Little Silver? Xiaohua stared blankly, then immediately understood. His mind was everywhere, and the spirit-seeking mouse, which didn't listen to Xiaohua at all, had been brought out with great difficulty by Xiaohua. Little Silver had been running around anxiously when he couldn't find Little Yellow in the space, but he had listened to Little Yellow's instructions and didn't run out of the 10-zhang radius. When he saw Little Yellow, he immediately flew onto Little Yellow's back and used his little tail to wrap around the fur on Little Yellow's back. Unfortunately, Little Yellow's fur wasn't long, and Little Silver couldn't wrap around it after trying a few times. Little Yellow pointed at Xiaohua's body with its mouth. Xiaohua should have understood, and the little mouse had shook its head repeatedly. It was very disdainful of Xiaohua, but in the end, it still reluctantly flew to Xiaohua's back, opened its little mouth, and started gnawing at the empty space on his back. Zzz. Zzz, that faintly discernible sound kept coming. Xiaohua got goosebumps all over when he heard it. At that moment, Xiaohua had already sobered up from the strangeness of seeing Little Yellow's third eye. It was when the silver eye had appeared that the 4 words, Delusion Breaker Magic Eye, had flashed through his mind. If the one on Little Yellow's forehead is a Delusion Breaker Magic Eye, then isn't the one on my left hand also a Delusion Breaker Magic Eye? But why can Little Yellow's open but mine can't? Xiaohua came to his senses, and this was his first thought. Furthermore, this Delusion Breaker Magic Eye can actually see the weakness of a restriction. Is this Little Silver gnawing on that restriction? My goodness, this spirit-seeking mouse is really different. It can actually use its teeth to gnaw on a restriction. He didn't know if it was because the restriction at the late foundation establishment stage was abnormally tough, or if it was because Little Silver was still small and didn't have enough strength, but it wasn't until the full moon rose in the sky that Xiaohua suddenly felt the pressure on his back loosen, and then his whole body was shackled with a lot less force. Good. Xiaohua was overjoyed. He took a deep breath and clenched his fists as hard as he could. Then with a loud shout, "Open!" he pushed his arms outwards at the same time. Xiaohua was extremely strong at that moment. Although Evil Tremor's magic power was strong, Little Silver had already broken the Great Confinement spell, Wherever Xiaohua's strength passed, the entire restriction immediately collapsed, and with a flash of brilliance, it was completely annihilated. Little Silver, who had been on Xiaohua's back, was startled when it was suddenly bounced up. Before it could come back to its senses and fly onto Little Yellow's back, a big hand caught it. Little Silver was initially repulsed, but there was an aura in the big hand that made him feel peaceful. Little Silver couldn't help landing on the big hand, and very habitually, its little tail curled around Xiaohua's right little finger. It was exactly the same as when Little Silver was born. Little Silver's little head wasn't big enough. It raised its head and squeaked as it looked at the colossal Xiaohua. A trace of blood seeping out of Little Silver's teeth. Ai, good Little Silver. Xiaohua had seen it earlier, and very tenderly reached out to stroke Little Silver's head. Little Silver closed its eyes slightly, looking like it was enjoying itself. After a while, Xiaohua put the exhausted Little Yellow and Little Silver into the space. Little Silver seemed to be reluctant to part with Xiaohua's hand as its little tail actually wrapped around it. It was only after Little Yellow scolded it that it reluctantly let go. But when Xiaohua was about to put Little Yellow into the space, he ran into another problem. Mother, there seems to be a very nice smell here, and it seems edible. I don't want to go back now. Little Yellow said tiredly as it refused to go back into the space. Xiaohua was very surprised. He had never known what Little Yellow ate, so when he heard it now, he naturally wouldn't let it go back so easily. Thus Little Yellow lay on Xiaohua's shoulder and flew up into the air. The array which had been cracked by Qin Mingwei at dusk had already started to gradually recover, and the crack was almost gone. Xiaohua reached out and took the tip of the magic spear in his hand. He then exerted all his strength and swiftly stabbed the same spot on the crack a dozen times. With a hua sound, like glass shattering, a brilliant light flashed in the area of several dozen zhang around them. 6 sparkling discs appeared in the air, and then they all fell to the ground. Xiaohua waved his hand, and the 6 discs fell into his hand one by one. Looking at the runes on the discs, and then looking at the unknown texture of the discs, Xiaohua gave up the idea of exploring it, and put all the discs into the space. Then, Xiaohua quickly walked over to Evil Quake's corpse and picked up the small flag that had fallen to the side. The small flag was heavy in his hand, and the flagpole was made of a pitch-black material. The flag was engraved with many flame-like runes, and with a slight wave, the runes seemed to be able to float. With the small flag and the discs, Xiaohua naturally wanted to find the method to set up the array. But looking at Evil Quake's corpse, Xiaohua hesitated. If he only took the method to set up the array, he naturally wouldn't be willing. Xiaohua definitely wouldn't let go of the things in Evil Quake's storage bag, but if he took everything, he couldn't leave the corpse behind. But if he didn't leave Evil Quake's corpse behind, then Evil Quake would mysteriously disappear. Maybe it would cause some commotion in the Imperial Thunder sect, and he wouldn't be able to get anything, and would even be caught. Grandma, who's afraid of who? This young master is only a chi condensation disciple. You can suspect anyone but this young master. Xiaohua naturally wouldn't let go of anything useful. He reached out and took off Evil Quake's storage bag, and without looking at the things inside carefully, he threw them all into the space. Then he threw the empty storage bag on the ground, and with a wave of his right hand, a wisp of purple flame appeared in his hand. That flame looked incomparably pure, and also extremely poignant. It was the Samadhi True Fire that Xiaohua had been practicing for more than 2 years. Xiaohua flicked his hand, and a purple spark flew out from the flame, slowly falling on Evil Quake's corpse. With a tongue sound, Evil Quake's corpse suddenly burst into flames, just like Qin Mingwei's body that was ignited. After a moment, seeing that Evil Quake's corpse and the storage bag had turned into ashes, Xiaohua held the Samadhi True Fire in his hand, and turned to look at the place where Qin Mingwei fell. Qin Mingwei was injured by the Samadhi True Fire, so there wasn't any corpse on the ground. There was only a small pitch-black hook in the ashes, and a small pagoda that was about 3 feet long and 1 foot wide. This small pagoda should be the exquisite Heaven Evolution Pagoda that they were talking about. Xiaohua extinguished the Samadhi True Fire in his hand, then reached out and picked up the exquisite Heaven Evolution Pagoda from the ground. After looking at it roughly, he put it into the space. At the bottom of the exquisite pagoda, Another small section of white bone was revealed. Chapter 1556. Why is there a white bone here? Xiaohua's gaze fell on the ground where the exquisite pagoda was just now. A white bone was strangely placed there. It's Qin Mingwei's remains? Xiaohua was puzzled. If it's Qin Mingwei's remains, it's impossible for there to be only a section left. Moreover, it looks very neat. Who cares what it is? Thinking about what kind of talisman Qin Mingwei used, Xiaohua's heart trembled. The true samadhi fire in his hand was still going to burn this white bone. However, what made Xiaohua even more shocked was that the white bone didn't turn into ashes like he imagined under the pure purple flames of the true samadhi fire. Instead, it became even more lustrous. Only this lustrous luster was faint green. Under the moonlight, it was somewhat frightening. Strange. Xiaohua was greatly surprised. He urged the magic power in his body and added 2 more wisps of true samadhi fire. The fire burned even brighter, and the green light of the white bone became even brighter. After another moment, the green light on the white bone flashed. From the green light, crooked characters that were somewhat similar to tadpoles, but were also extremely different appeared. After these characters appeared, they flowed above the white bone like water, and the white bone returned to its original white appearance. It turned out that this faint green luster was emitted by these characters themselves. Green seal script. Xiaohua saw these characters and immediately cried out in surprise. Admittedly, he had never seen these characters before. However, he had seen them in the booklet given to him by the Jinghua City's Zhu family. These green seal scripts were precisely the characters that recorded the orthodox talisman techniques. They were different from the characters commonly used in the Xiaoyu continent's cultivation world. According to the booklet, these green seal scripts were characters that had been passed down from the primordial era until now. Each character had a mystical talisman power. The talisman techniques left behind from the primordial era could only be recorded in these characters. Moreover, they could only be used in these characters. Good heavens, when this young master saw it, I only took it as a pastime and even scoffed at it. Now that I've seen it with my own eyes, I dare to truly believe it. Xiaohua opened his eyes wide and thought to himself, this green seal script is already so mystical. Then, those 2 unknown characters used by the primordial celestials, what are they like? What kind of earth-shattering magic power is there? While thinking, Xiaohua reached out his hand and picked up the white bone. Following the instructions in the book, he released his perception and carefully touched the green seal on the white bone. Speaking of which, it was quite mysterious. The green seal followed Xiaohua's perception and flowed towards his Naiwan palace. However, Xiaohua's mind did not gain anything from the green seal even after it rotated around Xiaohua's Naiwan palace for a moment. He was unable to read anything. Could it be that the records in the book are wrong? Xiaohua frowned. But at this moment, the reverse light in the space behind Xiaohua's head flickered. The green seal suddenly changed direction and entered the space. Moreover, it started to revolve around the reverse light. In an instant, symbols, words, and runes appeared in Xiaohua's mind. Moreover, as the images of those talismans and incantations were left in Xiaohua's mind, the green seal gradually dimmed until it completely disappeared. This is different from what was recorded in the book. Xiaohua felt the disappearance of the green seal and looked at the white bone in his hand. He was somewhat at a loss. He wanted to find an answer from the green seal in his mind. Unfortunately, he recognized the green seal but the green seal did not recognize him. Xiaohua could not understand a single word. Damn it! Xiaohua waved the white bone in his hand. After thinking for a moment, he also stored it in the space. However, what he did not notice was that as soon as the white bone entered the space, extremely small lightning flashed in the space and attacked the white bone from all directions. Qin Mingwei's storage pouch was burned by the fire. All the spirit pills, spirit stones, and other things inside were gone. Only the exquisite derivation pagoda and the white bone that recorded the talismans and incantations were left. After taking these things, Xiaohua's gaze naturally fell on the small hook on the ground. After seeing the use of this small hook, Xiaohua envied the strangeness of this thing. Thinking about it with his feet, a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator was killed by this thing without anyone noticing. As a qi condensation cultivator, how could Xiaohua not be moved? However, the reason why Xiaohua took this thing in the end was because he had some misgivings about this so-called soul tool. He had a bad feeling in his heart. Sweeping his perception around the soul tool, he did not find anything abnormal. That grayish-black fog also did not reappear. Xiaohua waved his hand, and the small hook immediately flew up and landed in Xiaohua's hand. The hook was light as a feather, almost weightless. However, in Xiaohua's hand, a cold feeling came from his hand and also from his heart. Strange. Xiaohua had encountered too many strange things tonight. He could not help but say that it was strange a few times. Holding the small hook in front of his eyes, he turned it left and right. The pitch-black small hook also absorbed the brilliance of the full moon, and did not emit any light. Zi Xiaohuang, who was lying on Xiaohua's shoulder, suddenly opened his eyes and let out a shriek. "What's wrong?" Seeing Xiaohuang's shriek, Xiaohua very naturally asked. But at this moment, a palm-sized shadow flew out from the small hook and pounced at Xiaohua's face with extreme speed. Ah! Xiaohua was greatly alarmed, and instinctively tilted his head back. However, that shadow was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it had already pounced on Xiaohua's face. Xiaohua only felt his vision darken. That palm-sized shadow actually penetrated Xiaohua's head, and pounced on the location of his Naiwan palace. "Eh? Your Naiwan palace? Grandma, why don't you have a Naiwan palace?" Xiaohua actually heard Qin Mingwei's voice strangely. He did not know whether it was in his ears or in his heart. "Qin Mingwei, you." Xiaohua suddenly thought of the use of Qin Mingwei's soul tool at the last moment. This guy actually hid his primordial spirit in the soul tool, and wanted to possess his Naiwan palace. "But my Naiwan palace? Why don't I have a Naiwan palace?" Xiaohua's heart was greatly alarmed. At this moment, Xiaohuang, who had been lying on Xiaohua's shoulder all this time, suddenly flashed with joy. With a swing of its large tail, it suddenly flew up to face Xiaohua's face. Qin Mingwei's primordial spirit did not discover Xiaohua's Naiwan palace, and could only withdraw from Xiaohua's mind. But at this moment Xiaohua, who was facing Xiaohua, humphed. A white brilliance shot out from Xiaohua's nose and covered Xiaohua's face. An incomparably powerful suction force was born from that white light, and firmly grabbed onto Qin Mingwei's primordial spirit. Ah! At this moment, a sound of panic came from the bottom of Xiaohua's heart. Without waiting for Qin Mingwei's primordial spirit to say another word, the white brilliance from Xiaohua's nose contracted, and Qin Mingwei's primordial spirit was sucked into Xiaohua's body. This Xiaohua was stupefied. He never thought that Xiaohuang's food would actually be the primordial spirit of a cultivator. This was the primordial spirit of a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator. A primordial spirit that had been tempered for hundreds of years, and was incomparably sturdy. It was actually so easily eaten by Xiaohuang. This scene was even more shocking than when Xiaohua saw Qin Mingwei's primordial spirit fly out of the soul armament. And it was even more shocking than everything he had seen and heard today. Burp, Xiaohuang seemed to burp. A voice rang out. "Mother, this thing is really fragrant. No wonder I smelled it just now. It was actually this thing. Mother, I'm tired. I feel warm, like I'm about to grow up." As Xiaohuang said this, its eyes actually slowly closed. "Oh," Xiaohua replied. With a move of his hand, he also took Xiaohuang into the space. Sure enough, Xiaohuang laid down on the ground and immediately fell asleep. Having encountered a life-and-death situation, Xiaohua was no longer in the mood to look at the uniqueness of the soul armament. With a shake of his hand, he put it into the space and then looked around Tenjiang around him. Seeing that there were no longer any obstructions, he flew up and headed in the direction Qin Mingwei came from during the day. Fortunately, Xiaohua's direction wasn't wrong. During this time, he encountered a middle-stage foundation establishment cultivator. Because he had just seen a sneak attack, Xiaohua was exceptionally careful. But when that cultivator saw that Xiaohua was a new disciple of Thunderclap Palace, and that he had lost his way, he actually enthusiastically brought Xiaohua to the vicinity of Thunderclap Palace. Although this cultivator was also going in the same direction, it was enough to make Xiaohua sigh in his heart. Actually, it's not that some cultivators don't have a conscience and don't have refined and courteous etiquette. It's just that these cultured and refined appearances and the conscience hidden in the depths of their hearts are unable to withstand the test of benefits. As long as there is a conflict of interest, these so-called etiquette and conscience will likely be discarded. And if this cultivator knew that I had a Buddhist treasure on me, I fear he would have already killed me. He wouldn't be so amiable as to bring me back to Thunderclap Palace, right? So, the way to avoid a conflict of interest is to firmly guard your own secret and absolutely not let anyone know. Even if it's your own master or your own senior martial brother, you shouldn't use these great temptations to test each other's kinship. If you can really withstand the test, then it's fine. But if you can't, then the relationship between master and disciple, the relationship between senior and junior martial brothers, will all turn into smoke. If master and eldest senior martial brother are like this, then what about the other disciples of Thunderclap Palace and Thunderclap Sect? What about the direct disciples of Thunderclap Sect and the disciples of cultivator families? Wouldn't they be even more unreliable? Not to mention the temptation, even a little high profile would make them jealous. It's better for me to keep a low profile. Now that I have a cultivation technique, medicinal pills, and many other things, I lack time to cultivate all day long. Who has the patience to play this game with them? As Xiaohua thought this, he made up his mind and was about to step into Thunderclap Palace when a cold voice sounded. Xiaohua? You weren't in Thunderclap Palace last night? Xiaohua was stunned. When he turned his head to look, he saw that it was Zhen Liang, who he had seen in the Jade Archive Hall yesterday. This is bad. I just beat this guy up yesterday. How did he see me today? This is karma. Xiaohua somewhat helplessly stopped his steps. Chapter 1557. Xiaohua was a bit hesitant to answer Zhen Liang's question. Xiaohua didn't know how he should answer Zhen Liang's question. He only heard from Xiangyang that he was a qi refining disciple and had to return to Zhenlei Palace every day, but he didn't know what kind of punishment awaited him. Thinking for a moment, Xiaohua cupped his hands and said, Senior brother Zhen, I followed senior brother Xiangyang to Thunder Palace yesterday to get an errand. When I came back, I was lost and didn't dare to fly around at night. I waited until dawn to leave. And I met a Foundation establishment martial uncle outside earlier, and it was he who sent me back. According to Xiaohua's thoughts, Zhen Liang would definitely use this mistake of his to teach him a lesson. Xiaohua didn't have any reason to make up an excuse, so he could only tell the truth. Who would have thought that Zhen Liang's face would reveal a strange expression? He looked at Xiaohua from head to toe, snorted from his nose and said, It's no wonder. The other disciples came to the Jade Archive Hall on the first day to register and receive their identity token, but you came late on the second day. Moreover, you came in such an aggressive manner that you didn't give any face to the other disciples who were guarding the hall. Then, you hurriedly went to the Thunder Palace to show off your power. How could you think of receiving your identity token? Since that token is the proof of our thunder-controlling sect's disciples, it also has the map of our 8 great thunder palaces and other dangerous palaces. If you didn't take the token, how could you not get lost in Laimo Mountain? Hearing Zhen Liang's words, Xiaohua's face turned green and red. He really didn't know, and the cowardly Xiangyang probably forgot about this matter, because he saw Xiaohua teaching a lesson to a disciple of Jade Archive Hall. Zhen Liang patted his hand and took out a token and a thin booklet from his storage pouch. He sneered and said, I called a disciple to find you at your residence last night, but you weren't there. I had no choice but to send you off personally today. Then he waved his hand and the token and booklet flew to Xiaohua. Xiaohua reached out to receive them and bowed. Thank you, Senior Brother General. Yesterday, forget it. It's already over, don't mention it. Zhen Liang waved his hand and turned to leave. As he walked, he said, The token needs to be recognized by blood. The booklet records the key to using the token. Take a good look. Yes, disciple understands. Xiaohua didn't think that he would pass this test so easily. His face was full of smiles as he respectfully sent Zhen Liang off. After returning to the fledgling Thunder Peak, Xiaohua sat down cross-legged in his cabin number 1334. He originally wanted to take inventory of the things he obtained from the evil shaker, but in addition to spirit stones, spirit grasses, and dawn, there were only a few magic tools and a few jade slips that seemed to have some origin. Xiaohua knew that these things could not be used by him in the qi refining stage, and he absolutely could not use them. Therefore, after thinking about it for a while, he gave up. Xiaohua first took out the token and the booklet. The booklet was very thin, and Xiaohua finished reading it in the time it took to eat a meal, after which he closed his eyes and pondered for a moment. Then he stretched out his finger, and a drop of blood was forced out from his finger and dripped onto the token. Just like the situation yesterday in the Jade Archive Hall, the blood did not seep into the token. Only under the control of Xiaohua's perception did it gradually seep into the token. As it seeped in, the entire token emitted a faint golden color, and then disappeared, returning to its original appearance. Damn it, the blood on this young master's body seems to have a problem. Xiaohua sighed. In the future, I can't casually reveal it. Then, Xiaohua made a hand seal and urged his magic power to hit the token. A bright light flashed, and a rather large topographic map emerged from the token. On the map, there were 8 shining spots, which were very eye-catching. These 8 spots are the 8 great thunder palaces, right? Then where am I? Looking carefully, sure enough, in one of the light spots, there was a small golden spot flashing. Oh, this is the Zhenlei Palace? While thinking, Xiaohua pointed his finger, and the dot of light gradually enlarged. 3 small words appeared, Zhenlei Palace. Looking around the 8 great thunder palaces, some places were dark, some places were gray, and there were even a few places that were red. According to the booklet, the red ones should be the forbidden areas of the Imperial Thunder Sect, the gray ones should be the places where there were few people, and the dark ones should be the places where the spiritual qi of heaven and earth was scarce. Haha. Sure enough, there is a sect. Different from rogue cultivators, these things don't need a single spiritual stone to get. This young master is not afraid of getting lost in the future. Then, Xiaohua changed his hand seal again, and the token in his hand trembled slightly. Then, Xiaohua stretched out his hand on the token, and a token that was exactly the same as the one in Xiaohua's hand was caught in his hand. Ha fun. Xiaohua put the token in his hand into another token, and that token actually disappeared into the other token. Then, Xiaohua used his hand to catch more tokens, and one after another, exactly the same token appeared out of thin air. Hehe, little junior brother. What are you doing? Just as Xiaohua was having fun, Xiang Yang's voice came from outside the wooden house. Xiaohua threw a few tokens on the table in the wooden house, and bowed to Xiang Yang, who entered the door and said, "Greetings, big senior brother. I heard you laughing before I entered the door," Xiang Yang said with a smile. "Little brother just received a token, and I'm practicing with it." Xiaohua pointed at the pile of tokens on the table and laughed. "Oh, look at me." Xiang Yang patted his forehead with his hand and said, "I actually forgot to receive your identity token in the Jade Archive Hall yesterday. If you have forgotten, then forget it." Xiaohua took back the token and said with a smile, "The disciple who was beaten in the Jade Archive Hall this morning sent it to me." "And they sent it?" Xiang Yang was slightly surprised and then nodded slightly. "AI, it seems that it's good to have some background." "What background can I have? I just got a so-called sect master's token." Xiaohua was disdainful. "Oh, my little junior brother, a so-called sect master's token is really easy for you to say. How many cultivators in my Imperial Thunder Sect, no matter how profound their cultivation is, how many of them have a sect master's token? Besides, the number of Qi condensation disciples and foundation establishment disciples who have a sect master's token can be counted on one hand, right?" Xiang Yang said with a face full of admiration. "Hehe, let's not talk about this," Xiaohua said with a smile. "Big senior brother, what urgent matter did you have yesterday? Is it done?" "Oh, it's nothing." Xiang Yang clapped his hands and took out a booklet and a token. He said with a smile, "This booklet contains the cultivation method for the first level of lightning evasion. Your senior sister-in-law copied it for you last night." "Hehe, thank you, big senior brother, thank you, senior sister-in-law." Xiaohua was happy in his heart. He first took the booklet, then looked at the other tokens strangely. Oh, this token was found by Master last night when he went to the Thunderclap Palace to ask the Palace Master to help you find it. Xiangyang smiled and handed the token to Xiaohua. Help me find it. Xiaohua took it blankly and looked left and right, not knowing what to do. Let's go, you just need to follow me to the Spring Thunder Hall. Xiangyang rarely kept him in suspense and left the wooden house first. In the Spring Thunder Hall, the disciple on duty was Zhen Zhen from before. Xiaohua naturally knew. Zhen Zhen didn't joke with Xiangyang and only looked at Xiaohua and asked curiously, Xiaohua, could it be that your helpless master dislikes you for being a loose cultivator and doesn't want you anymore? Xiaohua curled his lips in his heart and didn't dare to say anything. Xiangyang cupped his hands and said, Xiaohua's aptitude is exceptional and is a rare disciple of the Thunderclap Palace. How could my master not want you? I came here on the orders of the deacon of the Thunderclap Palace's Qiqiao Pavilion. Xiaohua is guarding the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden, which is really too far from the Thunderclap Palace. Going back and forth every day is really tiring, so Xiaohua can choose a place to cultivate in the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden. He doesn't need to report to the Thunderclap Palace every day. Oh, so it's like that. Zhen Zhen didn't have any special reaction. With a wave of his hand, the token in Xiaohua's hand flew into his hand. He scanned it with his divine sense and nodded. And I understand. In a while, I will bring this token to report. It seems that not having to report to the Thunderclap Palace every day isn't rare. Xiaohua suddenly understood, but immediately after, Xiaohua's heart was moved. Indeed, from the deafening Thunder Palace to the 10,000 Thunder Valley, then from the 10,000 Thunder Valley to the deafening Thunder Palace, and then to the Gen Thunder Palace early this morning. Xiaohua already knew the distance, especially when he had to ask for the Palace Lord's permission at night. Most likely, his master had no choice but to go to the deafening Thunder Palace personally. Xiangyang had been busy since yesterday until today. He had been working hard for this little junior brother of his whom he had just met. He was helpless. Xiaohua sighed. In this world, other than mutual deception and life and death struggles, there was also touching warmth and care. Let's go, little junior brother. I will bring you to the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden. Xiangyang cupped his hands and said to Xiaohua, There's no need, right? Eldest senior brother, I have the token with me. There is also a map on it. I can go there alone. Xiaohua said. Don't. Let me bring you there first. Xiangyang said with a smile. The Eastern Ridge Herb Garden is very far. There are many forbidden and dangerous areas. If little junior brother accidentally enters, not to mention master, even your senior sister-in-law will question me. Then I will have to trouble you, eldest senior brother. Xiaohua's heart felt warm. The Eastern Ridge Herb Garden was indeed very far. Xiangyang's thunder escape technique was also not successful. Although he was already in the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm, his flying speed was still not as fast as Xiaohua's. Therefore, when they arrived at the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden, it was already close to noon. Of course, along the way, Xiangyang pointed out the locations of several forbidden and dangerous areas. Xiaohua held the token and looked at it while secretly memorizing it in his heart. The place where he met with danger last night was a grayish-black area on the topographic map. It was called the Evil Stream Plain. It should be a place where the heaven and earthling qi was insufficient, and where there were few people. Xiaohua wanted to ask about the situation there, but when the words reached his mouth he stopped. He planned to bury the matter of last night in his heart for the rest of his life. Look, the Eastern Ridge is not far ahead. Xiangyang pointed. In the distance, a continuous mountain range rose and fell. The mountain range was light yellow and looked very dazzling under the sunlight. Chapter 1558. Light yellow. Xiaohua looked from afar, and was slightly startled. He asked in a low voice, Is it because of the Eastern Ridge's earth fire? Xiangyang nodded. Exactly. It is said that this place used to have abundant heaven and earth spiritual energy. My Thunder Palace's Qiao Pavilion set up a medicine garden here to plant spiritual herbs. However, thousands of years ago, there was a huge change in Dawnrain continent. Earth fire suddenly appeared in Eastern Ridge, and the heaven and earth spiritual energy here became scarce. Moreover, the fire attribute spiritual energy took up the majority, making it unsuitable for spiritual herbs to grow. Later, Xiao Pavilion set up a pill room here, wanting to borrow the power of the earth fire to refine pills. However, the earth fire was fine at first, but later on it became scarce. Moreover, this place was extremely far from Thunder Palace, so the pill room was abandoned over time. The two gradually flew closer as they talked. Xiangyang pointed at the yellow spiritual herbs on Eastern Ridge's light yellow mountain range, and said with a smile, although the pill room was abandoned, the spiritual herbs grew freely. No one cared about them. After all, the spiritual herbs that we consume have to be aged. If you don't care about them, they will grow by themselves. My Thunder Palace's disciples only need to come here at fixed times to take a look and pick suitable spiritual herbs. Those yellow spiritual herbs seem to be Shaoyan grass? Xiaohua looked at the spiritual herbs on the mountain range and asked with some hesitation. These spiritual herbs are very rare outside. I have been to EG before, but I have never seen them. I have only seen them in books. Hehe, I didn't expect junior brother to also know about spiritual herbs. Xiangyang clapped and said with a smile. This is precisely Shaoyan grass. I don't know when it was, or which disciple saw that Shaoyan grass, which was rarely seen in other places, grew extremely well here, so he advised the palace's deacon to plant Shaoyan grass everywhere. I didn't expect to hit the jackpot. Ever since Shaoyan grass was planted in Eastern Ridge, my Thunder Palace's bright flower pill no longer lacks spiritual herbs. Bright flower pill's main ingredient is Shaoyan grass? Xiaohua asked curiously. Since Shaoyan grass is so precious, why, is there no one guarding here? Junior brother doesn't know. The Shaoyan grass from before is indeed precious, but the Shaoyan grass planted here probably won't be used up in a few hundred years. Do you think Shaoyan grass is still precious in my Thunder Palace? Besides, this place was really far from the Thunderclap Palace. Which Qi condensation disciple would be willing to come here? Moreover, with the formation set up by our Thunderclap Palace's formation experts, is there still a need to keep watch? Xiangyang stopped and smiled. Little junior brother, what about the Eastern Ridges token? If you don't use the token, I'm afraid that only martial uncles of the Aurus core stage would be able to break in. Xiaohua nodded as he listened. He clapped his hand and took out the token. He already knew how to use this token. He formed a seal and his magic power surged out. A wave-like brilliance rushed out from the token. As the brilliance flashed in the air, the brilliance expanded. When it was about 100 feet in front of Xiaohua, it suddenly scattered into specks of light and landed in the air. Sizzle. The light spots were like water droplets falling into a pot of oil. The space where each light spot was located trembled slightly. The trembling was not synchronized at first, but as the trembling increased, it gradually became the same. Rumble, the sky seemed to shake and the earth shook. At the place where the light spots landed, a huge yellow mirror appeared. The other side of the mirror was exactly the same as what Xiaohua had seen before. However, Xiaohua sensed that there were fluctuations of world energy all around the mirror. Only the surface of the mirror was very calm. Needless to say, this mirror should be the passageway to enter the cave. Sure enough, Xiangyang waved his hand and said, "Let's go." After saying that, he flew into the mirror and disappeared. When Xiaohua followed him in, Xiangyang had already set on the mountain ridge not far away. According to the instructions on the token, Xiaohua and Xiangyang were able to easily find the disciple who was guarding the medicine garden in a rather large immortal's cave after his meditation. Seeing a place about the same size as Master's immortal's cave, Xiaohua almost jumped up in joy. Xiangyang looked at this little junior brother, who was beaming with joy. His previous worry had already disappeared. Although Xiangyang wasn't very familiar with the immortal's cave in the Eastern Ridge, he still took Xiaohua to see it. This immortal's cave was divided into 3 sections. The outermost section was a living room with jade tables, chairs and other things. In the middle was a cloud bed for resting. Next to the cloud bed were bookshelves and other things. The innermost section was the largest and was divided into different caves. There was even a mountain spring that led into these caves. Looking at Xiaohua's somewhat puzzled expression, Xiangyang smiled and said, "Generally, the Immortal's Cave of a Cultivator is divided into these 3 sections. Little junior brother should know about the outermost and middle sections. As for the innermost section, most of them are used to cultivate extremely precious spiritual herbs. For example, in Master's Immortal's Cave, there are spiritual herbs that are rare even in the Imperial Thunder sect." Then he pointed at the spring and the cave and said, "This cave is probably used to cultivate different spiritual herbs. Moreover, this Immortal's Cave should have existed before the Eastern Ridge was turned into a medicinal garden." Eldest senior brother is right. Xiaohua smiled and said, "There are spiritual herbs all over the mountain. Who would plant spiritual herbs in their own Immortal's Cave?" I'm just guessing." Xiangyang shook his head and said, "Actually, each spiritual herb requires a different amount of spiritual qi. Although the Eastern Ridge is rich in spiritual qi, and it's more than enough to cultivate ordinary spiritual herbs, it's still not enough to cultivate precious spiritual herbs. Didn't you see these different caves? Every cave should have a different array used to promote the growth of different spiritual herbs." Promote the growth of spiritual herbs? Xiaohua's heart stirred. It was very easy for him to think of the space's backtrack. "Okay, little junior brother, I still have other things to do. I won't take you around the Eastern Ridge." Xiangyang stretched and said, "After all, this Eastern Ridge, I've only been here a few times. Wait until you're familiar with it, then you'll know." "Thank you for your guidance, eldest senior brother." Xiaohua bowed and thanked him. "You and I are brothers, there's no need to be so polite." Xiangyang helped Xiaohua up and said, "Actually, when you asked why there's no one guarding the Eastern Ridge, there are still 2 reasons that I didn't tell you." "Senior brother, there's no harm in saying it." When Xiaohua heard that there were actually 2 reasons, he couldn't help but be surprised. The first reason is that the spiritual qi here is very violent. It's not easy to draw it into the meridians, and it's very unfavorable for a qi condensation stage disciple's cultivation. Xiangyang looked at Xiaohua's not too good expression and said, "However, I heard from Master that little junior brother has the hidden fire physique. The fire attribute is the most violent. Maybe it won't affect you much? You can try first. If it really doesn't work, then you'll have to do this job for a year. At this time next year, when you're promoted from an apprentice disciple to an official disciple, it won't be too late to find another job." "And okay." Xiaohua nodded. "Now that I think about it, I really should have discussed it with eldest senior brother first. I was really rash at that time." You're still young. Once bitten, twice shy. This little loss is nothing," Xiangyang said. Then he adjusted his expression and said in a low voice, "There's still the second reason? It's a place 100 li north of the Eastern Ridge. It's the strangest forbidden area of the Imperial Thunder sect. Previously, it was said that several disciples on duty inexplicably disappeared. No one knew if they were alive or dead. Some people suspect that it has something to do with that forbidden area." "Ah." Xiaohua was frightened by Xiangyang's words and broke out in a cold sweat. He couldn't help but shrink his neck. "Therefore, little junior brother, if you have nothing to do, don't go out blindly. Inside the Eastern Ridge's formation, there will be disciples from the Qiqiao Pavilion coming to pick flame dawn grass every year. Now that you're on duty, if they come, open the formation and give them a sufficient amount of flame dawn grass. If they don't come, then send the flame dawn grass back to Thundershock Palace. Left and right. Don't go near that forbidden area." Xiangyang said seriously. "Oh, so that's how it is." After listening to Xiangyang's warning, Xiaohua's heart relaxed. Xiangyang's words had always been filled with warnings, but Xiaohua understood that this last reason was most likely made up by Xiangyang himself. He was afraid that Xiaohua would be immature and run around. This Eastern Ridge was more than 100 li away from the forbidden area. It was also protected by an extremely powerful formation. How could those disciples disappear for no reason? I'm afraid it's the same story as Zhenxie and Qin Mingwei last night, right? Xiaohua sneered in his heart. However, he was also grateful. He cupped his hands and said, Many thanks for eldest senior brother's reminder. Little junior brother's cultivation is more important. I definitely won't cause trouble. Good. Then this elder brother is relieved. Xiangyang clapped his hands and said, You have this elder brother's message talisman in your hand. That message talisman can send messages over a long distance in my Imperial Thunder sect. If you have any problems with your cultivation method or other matters, you can send a message to this elder brother. This elder brother will rush over as soon as possible. Good. Then this elder brother will take his leave. Xiangyang flew into the air. Xiaohua opened the formation and sent him out. Xiangyang was still in the air, but he was still somewhat worried. That little junior brother, you have to cultivate diligently. Last night, Master personally made a trip to the Thunderquake Palace for you. He has high expectations for you. You must not let down Master's painstaking efforts. Little junior brother understands, Xiaohua said with a smile. Eldest senior brother, go back and tell Master that little junior brother will be able to ask him for guidance in less than 2 years. Hee, this elder brother understands. This elder brother will definitely pass this message to Master. Xiangyang laughed. With a wave of his big sleeve, he flew into the distance. Looking at Xiangyang's back and the smile in Xiangyang's eyes just now, Xiaohua knew that Xiangyang didn't believe his words at all. Cultivating from Qi refining level 10 to foundation establishment in 2 years? Perhaps even Li Zongbao, who was known as a cultivation genius, couldn't accomplish this, right? But what was the truth? Xiaohua shrugged his shoulders and used his finger to point. A ray of brilliance shot from the command medallion onto the mirror that had just been opened. Seeing the mirror rapidly shrink, Xiaohua muttered to himself. If I'm happy, I'll give you guys a pleasant surprise next year. But wouldn't doing this be too high profile? It's very inconsistent with my low-key style of conduct. Xiaohua pinched his chin, somewhat distressed. Chapter 1559. The Eastern Ridge's herb garden was extremely large. However, just as Xiangyang said, most of it was planted with flame dawn grass. Only the shady side of the mountain peak far away from the cave was planted with other spiritual herbs. However, even if it was only a small portion, it was still many times larger than Shang Huaming's herb garden. Inside, there were many ordinary and unusual spirit grasses of various colors. They were all planted in different areas, filling up one side of the mountain peak. However, with Xiaohua's many years of experience, these spiritual herbs were all half-dead and far from having any value in refining pills. He was afraid that every time the disciples came to the Eastern Ridge to pick flame dawn grass, they would never look at it. What a pity! Xiaohua's eyes lit up as he looked at the spiritual herbs. He had seen these spiritual herbs in the Codex of Herbs before. Although Ling Zongyu from the spiritual grass sect gave him many seeds, those seeds were after all ordinary. Compared to the rare spiritual herbs here, they were not enough. Damn it! After a few days, this young master will familiarize himself with this herb garden. First, this young master will transplant half of the spiritual herbs that this young master does not have in his space. Xiaohua swallowed his saliva and thought to himself, that's right, with the increase in my cultivation, the space has become a lot bigger. And I'm afraid that I can fit the entire Eastern Ridge into it. These spiritual herbs are still far from enough. If I have time, I have to go to the Qiqiao Pavilion and ask for all the spiritual herbs from the Imperial Thunder sect. Whether the Eastern Ridge can be planted or not, let's not talk about it first. Let's fill up this young master's space first. In these 2 years, Xiaohua's space had increased exponentially along with his cultivation. Just as Xiaohua said, it was much larger than the mountain range of the Eastern Ridge. However, no matter how big the space was, when Xiaohua's mind entered it, everything in the space would be reflected in his mind. It was as if the space was his mind. In addition to the fact that his mind could take out anything in the space, Xiaohua's mind was like the master of the space. Of course, it was more like a mirror-like reflection. There was no feeling of control at all. As for why this was the case, with Xiaohua's cultivation, he didn't think too much about it. He only felt that this space was much more convenient to use than a storage bag. There was also the growth of the spirit grasses in the space. Naturally, following the growth of Xiaohua's cultivation, the illumination of the spirit light in tracing light became stronger. The growth of the spirit grasses was also several times faster than before. With this kind of growth speed, Xiaohua could easily foresee that, not to mention 1,000-year-old spirit grasses, even 10,000-year-old spirit grasses would be everywhere in the space in the near future. Xiaohua first transplanted some spirit grasses, then flew to other places. It took him nearly a day to roughly look through the medicine garden in the eastern ridge. When he returned to his immortal's cave at night, Xiaohua carefully took out the warning talisman and placed it at the entrance of his immortal's cave. Although the eastern ridge was protected by an extremely powerful array, Xiaohua still didn't know what dangers lay within. Then, Xiaohua sat on the jade chair in the immortal's cave and looked around. At this time, looking at the entire immortal's cave again, he felt a sense of familiarity. After all, in the next few years, this would be the place where Xiaohua cultivated. After he left Shanghuaming, it was only today that he was finally able to have a cave abode of his own. He was finally able to calm his heart and cultivate. That's right. I was in a daze looking at the spirit grasses today and forgot to take a look at the alchemy room. Xiaohua suddenly remembered that the alchemy room was the most important place for Xiaohua's cultivation. However, because he had been refining the fire essence flame crystal for the past 2 years, and there were still some in his meridians, this matter was thrown to the back of his mind. Let's wait for tomorrow. After all, after using the fire essence flame crystal, I'll have to rely on medicinal pills. There are so many spirit grasses here, and there's also the alchemy room. There's no reason to waste them. Xiaohua thought and clapped his hands. The exquisite Dian pagoda, which was known as the most precious treasure of the Buddhist sect, was taken out from the space. Buddhist sect? What kind of cultivation sect is this? Why haven't I heard of it? It's even a most precious treasure. How could it fall into their hands? I'm afraid that guy is just bluffing. At this time, Xiaohua's horizons had also widened. Looking at 2 late-stage Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators, he didn't feel that they were very powerful. Holding the small pagoda in his hand, Xiaohua carefully examined it. This small pagoda looked very ordinary, and didn't seem to be any different from what he usually saw. There were even some parts that were damaged and looked very broken. It was far from the appearance of the magic tools and treasures that Xiaohua had seen before. TSK, what kind of Buddhist sect's most precious treasure is this? It can't even compare to the magic tool of the spirit husbandry sect. Xiaohua smacked his lips and gave an extremely low evaluation of the exquisite pagoda. Of course, how could he easily give up on something that even late-stage Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators would have to risk their lives for? When he looked carefully, the exquisite pagoda was divided into 9 layers. Between each layer, there were 4 thin grooves. From top to bottom, there were a total of 36 grooves. Among these grooves, some were filled with things while some were empty. Xiaohua counted carefully. Aside from the top 2 floors which were empty, the bottom 7 floors were all filled with things. However, at the same time, every floor had 1 or 2 empty grooves. There were a total of 17 grooves that had things in them. It was exactly the same as what Qin Mingwei said. What are the things in these grooves? It seems like even the late-stage Foundation Establishment Realm Qin Mingwei doesn't know. Xiaohua naturally couldn't see anything from the outside. He also released his perception. As expected, his perception didn't see anything abnormal. It was one with the pagoda and his perception couldn't penetrate it. Xiaohua turned the exquisite pagoda a few times. Isn't there a protrusion here? On the other side of the exquisite pagoda, Xiaohua saw that there was a protrusion on the other side of the groove. It should be just enough for 2 fingers to clamp it. Sure enough, Xiaohua stretched out his thumb and index finger, and just happened to clamp it. Could it be that I can pull it out? Xiaohua thought very naturally. However, he didn't have much hope. This exquisite pagoda had been with Qin Mingwei for dozens of years, and he hadn't been able to see through it. There was no reason for him to be able to find the profundity, just as it was in his hands. Let's give it a try. Xiaohua used his 2 fingers to pull it out. As expected, the protrusion didn't move at all. It seemed to be one with the small pagoda. Forget it, Xiaohua was still thinking about those green seal scripts and wanted to give up. But, just as he loosened his fingers, he suddenly had an epiphany and suddenly thought of something. Damn it, that damned Qin Mingwei must have also tried this in the past. But the problem is, why didn't he figure it out? There must be something wrong with these protrusions. The more obvious the place, the more likely it is to be the crux of the problem. If this young master can't find this protrusion strange, then I don't need to think about other things. Xiaohua's eyes slightly shrank. He stared straight at the protrusion for the time it took to eat a meal. Ha ha ha. Xiaohua suddenly laughed loudly. He used 2 fingers to clamp the protrusion again and said with a smile, "How am I stupid? If others can't take it out, then it's because they don't have enough strength. What do I have? Strength." As he said this, he took a deep breath and increased the strength of his 2 fingers. Sure enough, as Xiaohua used 60% of his strength, the protrusion really moved. There's hope. Xiaohua was overjoyed. He gradually increased the strength of his fingers, and the protrusion was actually pulled out by him little by little. However, even when Xiaohua used all the strength in his body, the protrusion was still not completely pulled out. It was only pulled out less than 3 inches. How much strength did Xiaohua have now? If he couldn't pull it out, then Qin Mingwei definitely couldn't pull it out either. Although it was only 3 inches, it was already enough. As the 3 inches protrusion was gradually revealed, the smile on Xiaohua's face also gradually became wider. In the end, he really didn't have any strength left and loosened his hand. The protrusion immediately retracted. Xiaohua's face didn't seem to be dispirited. Ha ha ha, this young master said it. Casually collecting some strange things will definitely be beneficial. Xiaohua waved his hand and took out an item from the space. Ladies and gentlemen, what do you think it is? It is a piece of gold leaf. Xiaohua didn't know where to use the gold leaf. Needless to say, what Xiaohua pulled out from the protrusion of the exquisite pagoda was a piece of gold leaf. Where should I put it? Xiaohua held the gold leaf in his hand and looked it up and down. After all, there were 19 empty grooves. If he put it in the wrong place, he was afraid that there would be a mistake. Who would have thought that when the gold leaf in Xiaohua's hand was just close to the exquisite pagoda, an extremely faint brilliance suddenly emitted from a groove in the exquisite pagoda. That brilliance was white but not white. It was somewhat viscous. When the brilliance shined on the gold leaf, the entire edge of the gold leaf gradually melted. In the blink of an eye, it turned into the appearance of a leaf. This leaf was golden and the veined patterns on it were milky white. Seeing this scene, Xiaohua very naturally placed the leaf into the groove. Sure enough, when the leaf entered the groove, the brilliance retracted back into the exquisite pagoda. On the other side, a protrusion also appeared. Very good. Xiaohua clapped his hands and laughed. Immediately after, Xiaohua placed the remaining 7 gold leaves into the pagoda. After he placed the last gold leaf into the pagoda, the entire pagoda was immediately enveloped by a layer of milky white brilliance. Bursts of golden brilliance blossomed from the bottom 4 floors, and within the milky white brilliance, there were countless tiny golden lotuses that gushed out from the space. Those countless golden lotuses blossomed one after another, and an indescribable fragrance filled the entire cave. This Xiaohua was just surprised when bursts of Sanskrit chants came out from the exquisite pagoda. The chants resounded in Xiaohua's ears, and his heart felt as if it was filled with the entire world. Tranquility, a piece of tranquility. Peace, a piece of tranquility. When the Sanskrit chants entered his ears, Xiaohua's heart was incomparably tranquil and serene. An experience that he had never experienced before welled up in his heart. Very naturally, Xiaohua sat down cross-legged with the exquisite pagoda still in his hands. His eyes focused on his nose focused on his heart, and his mind entered the space. On one hand, he comprehended the heavenly Tao, and on the other, he silently operated his mental cultivation method. Although the Sanskrit chants could not be heard, Xiaohua's heart seemed to be able to feel the indistinct rhythm of the Sanskrit chants. Chapter 1560. This Sanskrit chanting was indeed effective. It was like a kind of rain that nourished Xiaohua's meridians. Xiaohua's meridians were originally operating the heavenly law's embodiment technique to refine the remaining flames of the fire essence flame crystal. Although this Sanskrit chanting could not increase Xiaohua's refining speed, the amount of flames that Xiaohua could refine had greatly increased. Day after day, night after night, Xiaohua still held the exquisite pagoda in his hand as he sat cross-legged with a solemn appearance. The exquisite pagoda in Xiaohua's hand was still enveloped in Buddhist light. In the golden light of the lower 4 floors, the golden lotus slowly rotated along with the Sanskrit chanting. It actually escaped from the golden light and flew into the space between Xiaohua's eyebrows. Although Xiaohua did not move at all, in the space between his eyebrows, as the golden lotus penetrated, a swastika word actually appeared. This swastika word was faint at first, then gradually became clear. However, this swastika word was not complete. Apart from the bottom and right strokes that were complete, the third stroke was not complete, and the fourth stroke was not complete at all. The entire swastika word only appeared faintly at the beginning when it first appeared. When the golden lotus of the exquisite pagoda had completely gathered together to form the swastika word, an entire 2 months had passed. During this period of time, Xiaohua's body did not move at all, but there was a mysterious fluctuation around his body. The foreign starlight had always been tightly wrapped around him. In his meridians, the remaining flames of the fire essence flame crystal had also been completely refined. Of course, the heavenly law's embodiment technique was still operating, but the amount of true qi that could be refined was already very little. Xiaohua's cultivation was only fixed at the middle of the 11th level of qi refining. The golden lotus of the exquisite pagoda disappeared, and the golden light of the lower 4 floors of the exquisite pagoda also gradually disappeared. Immediately after, the Sanskrit chanting also stopped. The exquisite pagoda returned to its previous ordinary appearance. It moved. Xiaohua's eyelids finally moved slightly, as if with a kind of extreme reluctance. Xiaohua opened his eyes. In an instant, the reverse light in the space began to rotate again, and the foreign starlight suddenly disappeared. Sigh, Xiaohua's eyes moved slightly, looking at the exquisite pagoda in his hand. There was some eagerness in his eyes as he sighed. This thing is indeed a treasure. But with just a voice, I was brought into a mysterious realm. In this realm, it seems to be filled with tranquility, yet it also seems to be filled with benevolence. It is the exact opposite of I's fire elemental cultivation technique. The heavenly law's embodiment technique and the voice both reinforce and counteract each other. In just 60 days and nights, I was able to push I from the middle stage of the 10th realm to the middle stage of the 11th realm. It is truly marvelous. This Buddhist sect. Which true cultivation sect is it? Judging from the effects of the exquisite derivation pagoda, it wouldn't be any worse than the Imperial Lightning sect. Their ruins? Could it be that their descendants have been wiped out? Just as he was thinking, the medallion in Xiaohua's bag of holding vibrated. Xiaohua slapped his hand, and the medallion for the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden appeared. Ha! Someone actually sent a message? Xiaohua was slightly taken aback. Immediately after, he pointed his hand, and the token flashed with a faint radiance. For crimson-red messaging talismans flew in from outside the abode. Well, there are actually 4 of them. Xiaohua placed the medallion to the side, and put the exquisite derivation pagoda into his space. He was just about to reach out for the messaging talismans. At this moment, the swastika symbol between Xiaohua's eyebrows slightly rotated. Xiaohua's mind was suddenly pulled into a strange place filled with Buddhist light. In this place, apart from an indomitable Buddha statue, there was nothing else. What is this thing? Xiaohua felt that this Buddha statue was like the entire world, but also like grass. Although the entire Buddha statue wasn't particularly clear, the Buddha statue had one hand pointing to the heavens, and the other pointing to the earth. Its 2 eyes seemed to contain both the heavens and the earth, but also seemed to contain an aura of boundless benevolence. It was very deeply imprinted in Xiaohua's mind. Just as Xiaohua was bewildered, a flower suddenly appeared in the motionless Buddha statue's hand. That flower was like a dream. flowing with light and overflowing with color. The Buddha statue's benevolent expression also appeared along with the flower's appearance. It faintly smiled, and the entire space was suddenly filled with heavenly flowers. Xiaohua's mind was suddenly filled with many things. It was also in an instant that Xiaohua's eyes lit up again. His mind returned to his body, and his finger was still about to pinch open the messaging talisman. And the swastika symbol between his eyebrows gradually disappeared, and disappeared into his skin. Good heavens, Xiaohua was greatly alarmed. What is this thing? Immediately, Xiaohua didn't accept the messaging talisman, and closed his eyes to ponder. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, Xiaohua opened his eyes. His face had an indescribable expression, but his brows were slightly wrinkled. Exquisite Leaf Sutra? This is the Buddhist sect's supreme method of cultivating relics. The sariras cultivated by other dharmic formulations were either round balls or multicolored. Only the relic cultivated by this exquisite leaf sutra is the image of Buddha. Furthermore, it's golden in color. It's called the Buddha's relic. But, what is this relic? Who is Buddha? Xiaohua was somewhat at a loss. The strangest thing is that this Buddha's relic is formed in the Naiwan Palace? Isn't that where the primordial spirit is? Is it the place where the divine sense is born? Right, speaking of the Naiwan Palace, my Naiwan Palace doesn't seem to have one. Without the Naiwan Palace, how can I cultivate the primordial spirit? How can my divine sense come out? Moreover, this so-called supreme mental cultivation method of the Buddhist sect, why is it somewhat similar to the nameless mnemonic chant that I cultivated in the past? I used the nameless mnemonic chant to cultivate a different perception from divine sense. Could it be that nameless mnemonic chant is also some mental cultivation method of the Buddhist sect? Thinking of this, Xiaohua's heart jumped. No, if it's like the exquisite Leaf Sutra said, this divine ability is Buddhist awareness. Hearing the name, it's different from divine sense. Could it be that I cultivated it wrongly? Forget it. Xiaohua immediately shook his head. In any case, this exquisite Leaf Sutra only has the first 4 layers. The last 5 layers are all incomplete. Maybe in the future, I will wait until I get the last 11 gold leaves from this exquisite derivation pagoda. This Buddhist sect's flower-picking smile is quite interesting. There are no words at all, but with a smile, the cultivation method will be transmitted to I. It's really mysterious. Thinking of this, Xiaohua squeezed his hand, and the foremost messaging talisman shattered. Xiang Yang's voice came. Little junior brother, you've been in the Eastern Ridge for 30 days. I came to see you on Master's orders. Open the formation. Master and eldest senior brother really care about me. Xiaohua smiled and crushed the other messaging talisman. Xiaohua, I am Zhenming. I came to pick the flame dawn grass on the orders of the Thunder Flash Hall's deacon. Please open the formation. Xiaohua frowned slightly and thought. It's already time to pick the flame dawn grass? Eldest senior brother only said to pick it every year, but he didn't say when. Damn, I don't know when this messaging talisman came. I'm afraid it will delay the matters of the Thunder Flash Hall. The third messaging talisman was still Xiang Yang's voice, but this time it was a bit anxious. Little junior brother, this is the second time I've come. It's already been 50 days. Could it be that you're in seclusion? AI, you've only just entered the sect. You don't even have medicinal pills and other things yet. Why are you in such a hurry to enter seclusion? If you come out, send me a messaging talisman. I'll wait for you for 100 days. If there's no reply, I'll go to the Thunder Flash Hall and ask the deacon to open the restriction. Xiaohua's heart felt warm. He reached out and took out the messaging talisman that Xiang Yang left behind. He said a few words into the messaging talisman, then flung his hand. The messaging talisman immediately turned into lightning and flew out. The fourth messaging talisman shocked Xiaohua, but it was also within his expectations. It was Shueshue. Xiaohua, where are you now? I'm currently working as an odd job worker in the Thunder Flash Hall's pill refining room. I originally wanted to look for you, but Master said that before Foundation establishment, the disciples of the Thunder Flash Hall and the Thunder Flash Hall can't casually meet. She said she was afraid of damaging her mental state. Master is very good to me. She said that my physique is suitable for cultivating her senior's cultivation technique. However, because I can only receive her guidance after foundation establishment, I can only stay in the Thunderflash Hall for the time being. However, Master said that she's a core formation cultivator, so her teaching of disciples is a bit special. Perhaps I can go to the Thunderflash Hall soon. Of course, Master won't directly instruct me. Some of my foundation establishment senior martial sisters will instruct me. And you have to speed up your cultivation. Don't let me catch up to you. Hehe, Master said that if everything goes smoothly, I should be able to reach foundation establishment within 20 years. What about you? Me? When Xiaohua saw that the messaging talisman was silent, he curled his lips and muttered to himself. You're amazing just because you reached foundation establishment in 20 years. I'm afraid I'll be able to reach foundation establishment next year. However, when he thought about it, Shui was only at the 7th layer of qi refining. Ordinary cultivators in the Thunderflash sect would need 24 to 25 years to reach the peak of the 12th layer of qi refining without any obstacles. Shui using 20 years to reach foundation establishment could be considered good. After thinking for a moment, Xiaohua also took out a messaging talisman and whispered a few words before sending it out. He finally got the chance to cultivate with great difficulty, so he didn't want to be disturbed by anything. Therefore, he didn't say where he was and only said that he was cultivating diligently, hoping to reach foundation establishment as soon as possible. Presumably, Shui would also understand his thoughts and wouldn't come looking for him. After that, Xiaohua didn't dare to tarry. He picked up the Eastern Ridge Herb Garden's token and carefully examined it. He flew out of the cave and found some jade boxes in a nearby herb garden. He then hurriedly plucked a sufficient amount of flame dawn grass and used the flight technique to rush to Thunderclap Palace. Xiaohua's flight technique was extremely fast. From the Eastern Ridge to the Thunderflash Hall, there weren't any eyesores, so Xiaohua didn't have to worry. He only used 6 hours to reach the Thunderflash Hall. When he saw the disciple on duty at the Thunderflash Hall, Xiaohua smiled and said, "Senior brother, which one of you is senior brother Jinming?" The disciple on duty looked up and down at Xiaohua and asked indifferently, "Why are you looking for junior brother Jinming?" "Oh, this disciple is doing odd jobs at the Eastern Ridge Medicine Garden." Last time, without waiting for Xiaohua to finish speaking, the disciple on duty smiled and said, "Oh, I understand. So you're that odd job worker at the Eastern Ridge Medicine Garden. What's wrong?" Xiaohua secretly cursed in his heart and hurriedly asked, "Could it be this disciple has delayed the sex alchemy?" Chapter 1561. You've got guts. You've only been in my Thunder Shock Palace for 2 months and you dare to slack off. Every year, junior brother Jinming goes to the Eastern Ridge Medicinal Garden to pick flame dawn grass, and has never made any mistakes. Yet this year, when Grandmaster Jinhan opened the cauldron to refine the clear flower pill, you shut down the formation so that Jinming can't pick the spirit herbs. Tell me, how can Jinming not be punished? "Io," Xiaohua cried out in shock. "This is my fault. How can I let senior brother Jinming suffer? Please report to the deacon. Senior brother is willing to accept the punishment." The disciple on duty looked at Xiaohua and nodded. "Fortunately, you're also a responsible man. Let's go, follow I in." As the disciple on duty walked into Thunder Shock Hall, Xiaohua asked tentatively, "Senior brother, I have a question, but I don't know if I should ask." The disciple on duty glanced at him and sneered. "If you should ask, ask. If you shouldn't ask, don't ask." Hehe, Xiaohua smiled apologetically. "I just want to ask, although the Eastern Ridge Medicinal Garden is protected by a formation, but that formation was also set up by the sex elders. Why don't we ask the elders to break the formation? Or perhaps the Eastern Ridge Medicinal Garden's token. Is there only one? I can tell you're still hoping for a fluke." The disciple didn't find it strange and rolled his eyes. "The Eastern Ridge Medicinal Garden is very far from my Thundershock Palace. Every year, Only Zhenming goes there once when Grandmaster Zhenhan is refining the clear flower pill. Normally, no one pays attention to that place, so naturally, there's a spare token. But the strange thing is, when Zhenming couldn't enter the medicinal garden for fear of delaying his refining, he came back to look for the spare token. That token was actually not there and mysteriously disappeared. Ah, disappeared? When did it disappear? Xiaohua was shocked. That token disappeared, which meant that someone could enter and exit the Eastern Ridge Formation at any time. Then his own safety was not assured. How could he not be shocked? How would I know? The disciple rolled his eyes again. No one went to the Eastern Ridge Medicinal Garden for hundreds of years. No one paid attention to that spare token for a long time. Even the deacon doesn't know, so how would I know? Xiaohua's eyes turned slightly and he thought. Could it be? There's something special in the Eastern Ridge? Looks like I'll have to properly search for it when I get back. The disciple continued. As for asking the elders to break the restriction, only you can think of that. That restriction was set up by the ancestors. Who would dare to disturb them if it wasn't a serious matter? While they were talking, the two of them arrived in front of a side hall. The disciple told Xiaohua to wait at the door, and he went in to report. Damn it, what should we do now? Xiaohua stood there with his hands clasped behind his back, slightly frowning. He had only been in the Imperial Thunder Sect for less than 100 days, and he had already gotten himself into trouble. Xiaohua already knew what the clear flower pill was. It was a pill used by Foundation Establishment stage cultivators to increase their power. Even within the Imperial Thunder Sect, there weren't many of them. Every Foundation Establishment stage cultivator only had a small supply every year. If he delayed the concoction of the clear flower pill, he would most likely delay the cultivation of many of the Thunderclap Palace's Foundation Establishment cultivators. But no one told me when someone would come to the Eastern Ridge to pick the Flame Dawn grass every year. Xiaohua felt that he was very innocent. Just as Xiaohua was thinking, the disciple came out from the side hall. Behind the disciple were two other Foundation Establishment stage cultivators. One of them was a middle-aged man in the late stage of Foundation Establishment stage. He was tall, had a full beard, and a pair of bell-like eyes. He looked very ferocious. The other one was Zhenfeng, whom Xiaohua met last time. When Xiaohua saw Zhenfeng, a happy expression appeared on his face. He thought to himself, wonderful, this Zhenfeng should know before this thought even appeared in his mind. A trace of anger appeared on Zhenfeng's face. He quickly took half a step forward and berated, Xiaohua, what did you do? I told you clearly that day. In another 10 days, it will be the day of picking the Flame Dawn grass. You mustn't be careless. Don't do it yourself. Just wait for your senior brother Zhenming to pick it. You can also watch from the side. Wait until next year you can pick it yourself. There's no need for your senior brother Zhenming to go. You, on the other hand, sealed the Eastern Ridge's formation. No matter how Zhenming called you, you wouldn't come out. You. Sigh, fortunately, you knew to come to the Thunderflash Hall to receive your punishment. Let's see how Deacon Zhenfeng will deal with it. Xiaohua was slightly stunned. He rolled his eyes and could only sigh. He bowed to the big man and said, Disciple Xiaohua greets Senior Zhenfeng. Disciple only cared about cultivation, but forgot his duty and failed to live up to Deacon's kindness. Deacon, please punish me. So you're Xiaohua. Zhenfeng looked Xiaohua up and down a few times but didn't see anything special. He said with a bit of displeasure, the palace lord specially ordered this deacon to arrange a job for you. This Eastern Ridge was also chosen by you. Why did you slack off when you just arrived at the herb garden? I know you chose the Eastern Ridge because you want to be free and wholeheartedly focused on cultivation. But cultivation is cultivation. You can't forget your duty as a disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect. If every disciple was like you, wouldn't my Imperial Thunder Sect be a plate of loose sand? How can my Imperial Thunder Sect establish itself in the country of Xi? I only use you once a year and you make a mistake. Moreover, the Eastern Ridge hasn't. Alas, what should this deacon say about you? Disciple knows his mistake. Xiaohua was very helpless. He could only bow again. All right, this deacon doesn't care. But you're still a probationary disciple now. In another 10 months, you'll become an official disciple. Your mistake this time. I'm afraid it will affect your assessment. If you don't pass the assessment, you'll still have to leave the Imperial Thunder Sect. Xiaohua was very anxious. He stretched out his hand and took out the storage pouch. He said anxiously, Disciple, has already picked the Flame Dawn grass. I don't know. If I can atone for my mistake? Atone for your mistake? Zhenfeng sneered and said. What kind of mistake did you make? How can you atone for your mistake? As he spoke, he took the storage pouch and took out the jade box. His face revealed a trace of surprise. He looked at Xiaohua and said, Did you pick this? Yes, disciple picked it. Xiaohua nodded. Yes, there's a special technique to pick this Flame Dawn grass. The technique isn't easy to grasp. Seeing that the Flame Dawn grass you picked was clean and didn't damage the roots, it's pretty good. Zhenfeng's expression eased a bit. Io, Xiaohua Zhenfeng suddenly cried out from the side. I remember the last time you came. You were still in the middle of the 10th level of qi refining, right? Ow. Xiaohua's heart shook. He hurriedly nodded and said, Disciple. Disciple went into secluded cultivation to break through the bottleneck of the 10th level of qi refining. Of course, Disciple remembered Senior Zhenfeng's instructions and wanted to come out before Senior Brother Zhenming went to the Eastern Ridge, but... Oh, I understand. Zhenfeng nodded and said to Zhenfeng, the bottleneck from the 10th level of qi refining to the 11th level of qi refining is really difficult. It's the beginning of the birth of divine sense. Xiaohua wholeheartedly went into secluded cultivation, so it's understandable. Moreover, Xiaohua actually used 2 months to go from the middle of the 10th level of qi refining to the middle of the 11th level of qi refining. As expected of the person that the palace master thinks highly of. If he can't become a disciple of our Thunderclap Palace because of this mistake, it'll really be our Thunderclap Palace's loss. Zhenfeng also nodded slightly, a trace of surprise flashing through his eyes. He'd heard of someone going from the first level of qi refining to the second level of qi refining in 2 months, but he'd never heard of a disciple going from the 10th level of qi refining to the 11th level of qi refining. This Xiaohua was the disciple that Thunder Meng Taoist instructed, so how could he not pay attention to him? Zhenfeng nodded slightly, looking at Xiaohua and saying, Looking at your aptitude, you can be cultivated. However, you must remember that you're now a disciple of the Thunderclap sect, not a disciple of an aristocratic family. When considering anything, you must put the sect's interests first. Yes, disciple understands. Xiaohua's heart relaxed and he bowed and said, Since this is your first offense, I won't look into it too deeply. I'll punish you with a year's worth of offerings. Zhenfeng waved his hand and returned the storage pouch to Xiaohua, saying, Let Zhenfeng take you to see Martial Uncle Zhenyi. If he can let this matter pass, you'll be fine. Otherwise Zhenfeng didn't finish his words. But Xiaohua naturally understood. There were only 2 meanings. If Xiaohua didn't pass the test in a few months, he'd still be expelled from the mountain. If not, he'd have to ask Thunder Meng Taoist to come out and talk. Xiaohua's heart was bitter, but he could only put on a smile saying, Thank you for your kindness, Senior. Soon after, Xiaohua followed Zhenfeng out of the Thunderclap Palace and flew towards a mountain range. Seeing that there was no one around, Zhenfeng said, Xiaohua, picking the Blaze Dawn grass a few days earlier or later doesn't matter. However, this matter was a bit coincidental. Martial Uncle Zhenxia, who was supposed to be refining the Blaze Dawn pill, suddenly disappeared, and Martial Uncle Zhenyi was temporarily left behind by the palace master to refine the Blaze Dawn pill. Martial Uncle Zhenyi originally wanted to go on a trip, so of course he wasn't willing. On top of that, the Blaze Dawn grass wasn't delivered in time, so he flew into a rage. Zhenming was also punished with a year's worth of offerings. When you arrive at Martial Uncle Zhenyi's Immortal's Cave, you must properly apologize. If this matter isn't settled, it'll be really bad for you. Seeing that Zhenfeng didn't mention anything about the date of picking the Blaze Dawn grass, Xiaohua sneered in his heart. This thing was just empty words. Just now he didn't mention it in front of Zhenfeng, so there was no need to mention it now. However, Xiaohua had another plan in his heart. None of the things in Zhenxia's storage pouch were damaged, I took them all. This guy is actually a pill master, so there must be some pill recipes in there. I'm at the 11th layer of qi refining, and I'm worried about not having any pills to take. When I go back, I'll take a careful look. After flying for 2 hours, they arrived at a place with beautiful mountains and limpid waters. Zhenfeng didn't come any closer, so he sent out a summoning talisman. A moment later, a boy around the 4th layer of qi refining flew out from the mountainside. Looking at the two of them, he laughed and said, "Which one of you is senior martial brother Xiaohua?" Xiaohua took a step forward and cupped his hands, saying, "I am. And senior martial brother Xiao, please follow I. This senior doesn't need to come." Zhenfeng looked at Xiaohua, nodded slightly, then turned around and left. "Senior martial brother Xiao, please." The boy stood up and led the way, leading Xiaohua into the Immortal's Cave. Chapter 1562. After entering the Immortal's Cave, Xiaohua looked around. Zhen Ye's Immortal's Cave was different from Wu Hen's Immortal's Cave. It was much larger, and there were many mountain paths leading to different places. There were also quite a few qi condensation disciples walking about. It was very lively. The boy leading the way didn't stop in the slightest. He brought Xiaohua through several Immortals' Caves until they arrived at the innermost alchemy room. "Wait here." The boy pointed with his hand and entered the alchemy room. "Yes, I understand." Xiaohua respectfully stood outside the alchemy room, waiting for the summons. However, a moment after the disciple entered, a divine sense swept over Xiaohua's body. After that, no one paid attention to Xiaohua. Not only did the disciple not come out, but the disciples who came in and out of the alchemy room also didn't look at Xiaohua. Sigh. After a moment, Xiaohua knew what was going on. He sighed and didn't move. His mind entered the space and began to comprehend the heavenly Tao. In his meridians, the heavenly reflection technique was also operating. Xiaohua actually began to cultivate. He was really unwilling to let such a good time go to waste. Inside the alchemy room, an old man with white hair and a beard was sitting cross-legged. His face was grim. In front of him was an earth fire with an alchemy furnace above it. Around the furnace, there were 6 disciples sitting cross-legged, holding different things in their hands. Some were gourds, some were fans, some were talismans, and there were also jade boxes and jade bottles. The disciple who led Xiaohua in was sitting cross-legged behind the old man, holding a jade tray in his hand. Fire! The old man was Zhen Yi. He observed the earth fire with his divine sense and suddenly shouted in a low voice. When the disciple holding the gourd heard this, he hurriedly raised the gourd and formed seals with his hands. From the gourd, several strands of samadhi true fire flew out and rushed into the earth fire. With a whoosh, the earth fire suddenly became smaller and turned into a purple-red color. Zhen Yi formed seals with his hands and struck the alchemy furnace in succession. The alchemy furnace actually emitted a buzzing sound and almost floated up. Sigh. Zhen Ye's expression changed slightly as he exclaimed, "We have the upper hand." The disciple holding the fan was an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator. When he heard this, he immediately activated his magic power and raised the fan in his hand to fan the pill furnace. The fan was clearly a magic tool. As he waved it, the surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth was sucked into the fan. Then the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was fanned out by the fan. However, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was now several times denser than before. When the dense heaven and earth spirit qi was fanned into the earth fire, the purplish-red earth fire flickered a few times and became smaller. The red color was less and the purple color was more. The pill furnace shook even more violently. Zhen Ye's expression relaxed slightly. He cast a few spells, and the pill furnace floated up from the earth fire. But at this moment, Zhen Ye's expression changed greatly. His tightly shut eyes slightly opened. He formed seals with his left hand and slapped it on his chest. Before Zhen Ye's left hand left his chest, a wisp of purple true samadhi fire was spat out from his mouth and hit the pill furnace. Woo! The earth fire that was burning around the pill furnace suddenly changed again, turning into a purple color. The violently shaking pill furnace gradually stabilized under the purple true samadhi fire, and slowly fell down. Sigh, Zhenye's eyes gazed at the true samadhi fire that was mixed with many red flames and sighed again. The cultivator holding the fan in his hand kept the fan. Seeing that the pill furnace had stabilized, he whispered, "Master, you don't have to be too obsessed. How many cultivators in our country if she can refine the true samadhi fire to be as pure as yours? I'm afraid that an overly pure true samadhi fire doesn't exist in our cultivation world." Zhenqing, Master naturally knows what you're saying, but without the extremely pure true samadhi fire, it's impossible to refine this clear flower pill to the highest grade. Master has refined so many clear flower pills, but at most they're high grade. Master is unwilling to accept this. Actually, Master can consider from other aspects. For example, the age of the Shaoyan grass, the weight of the clear stream fruit, etc. Zhenye's face was full of displeasure. He waved his hand. How can Master not know these things? Disciple naturally knows. Master knows disciple. Alright, I know what you're thinking. You've also worked hard. As a foundation establishment cultivator, you still have to accompany Master to refine pills. You should go back. Zhenyi smiled. This clear flower pill will be refined in another 7 days. There shouldn't be any problems. Master, disciple rarely has the chance to accompany you. Let's stay a little longer. Zhenqing called over the boy who brought Xiaohuan and had him put away the fan. He then sat behind Zhenyi. If not for senior brother Zhenxie's sudden disappearance, disciple wouldn't have the chance to accompany Master to refine pills. However, to have Master refine clear flower pills with gold core stage cultivation is a waste of talent. It can't be said to be a waste of talent. When Master was at Foundation Establishment, I also refined clear flower pills many times, Zhenyi said with a smile. However, Palace Lord's obstruction has delayed a very important matter of Master's. Palace Lord, there's no other way. If you don't take action, who can accept the task of refining clear flower pills? Zhenqing smiled apologetically. I don't know where senior brother Zhenxie went. Every year he has to refine clear flower pills. Why did he make a mistake this year? Oh, this Zhenyi looked at the boys around him and transmitted his voice. According to Palace Lord, 2 months ago, Zhenxie's life tablet was already broken. It was discovered by the disciple on duty. The palace only sent people to look for clues, but forgot about him refining clear flower pills. Ah. Zhenqing's face was filled with shock. He also transmitted his voice. Where did this happen? How would Master know? Zhenyi shook his head slightly. Zhenqing didn't pursue the matter. He looked outside the alchemy room and frowned. What is the disciple outside the alchemy room doing? A disciple who just entered my Imperial Thunder sect this year is guarding the Eastern Ridge's Blaze Dawn grass. A disciple from Lightning Hall went to pick Blaze Dawn grass, but this guy actually neglected his duty and didn't open the array so that the disciple couldn't enter, delaying Master's refining of clear flower pills. He had no choice but to pick Blaze Dawn grass from other places. The quality of the Blaze Dawn grass from other places isn't good enough. I'm afraid that the clear flower pills Master will refine this time can only be mid-grade. Zhenyi swept his divine sense and sneered. This kind of aristocratic family's disciple must be self-centered and never put the interests of the sect in his heart. If I don't teach him a lesson, he'll think that the Imperial Thunder sect is an aristocratic family. This guy must be working hard. He actually has to cultivate after being punished here? Zhenyi coldly snorted. Xiaohua's heart was greatly shaken, as if a large hand had pulled his mind out of the space. Moreover, the true qi in his meridians was also in chaos, wanting to rush everywhere. Xiaohua was greatly alarmed. Just as he was about to calm his mind and straighten out his true qi, an enormous pressure came out from the pill room and enveloped his head. As early as 2 years ago, on Jinhua Mountain, the pressure of Fu Yunbua and Qiu Mingwei, 2 Foundation Establishment stage cultivators, collided. To him it was a perilous situation. Today, how could the pressure of a gold core stage cultivator not cause him to tremble in fear? In an instant, the true qi in Xiaohua's meridians couldn't move, as if it had solidified. His body also felt as if a huge rock was pressing down on him, and large beads of sweat seeped out from his forehead. Gold core stage cultivator. Xiaohua powerlessly shouted in his heart. As if to teach Xiaohua a lesson, the pressure was withdrawn in an instant, and the true qi in Xiaohua's meridians began to peacefully circulate again. Xiaohua wiped the sweat from his forehead and bowed respectfully. Many thanks to martial ancestor. Humph, another cold snort, and then no other sound was heard. This time, Xiaohua didn't dare to cultivate anymore, and only stood respectfully. Another 7 days and 7 nights passed, and only a light scolding sound could be heard from the pill room. A rich medicinal fragrance rushed out from the pill room, and after a moment the pill room's door opened, and Zhenyi walked out from the pill room. Xiaohua hurriedly respectfully saluted and said, "Disciple Xiaohua greets martial ancestor." Who would have thought that Zhenyi didn't even look at him, and just walked away? Zhenqing and the others also took their own things and followed behind Zhenyi. Xiaohua looked at everyone's backs, and somewhat scratched his head, not knowing whether he should follow or not. "Why aren't you coming over?" A voice entered his ears, and it sounded very unfamiliar. Xiaohua didn't dare to be negligent, and hurriedly followed behind everyone. The group of people didn't walk too far, and arrived at a large hall. Each of the children placed their things in various places in the hall, and then immediately dispersed, leaving only Zhenyi and Zhenqing, master and disciple, sitting down. Xiaohua also learned his lesson, and didn't dare to enter the hall, and only quietly waited outside. Inside the hall, Zhenyi drank a cup of spiritual tea and ate 2 spiritual fruits, then raised his head and looked at Xiaohua outside the hall. "Master, you've already made this little guy wait for 10 days. Looking at this little guy's appearance, he's able to keep his composure, and has some bearing. It's better to call him in and send him away. It didn't take long anyway." Humph. Zhenyi glanced at Zhenqing. "You're the only one with a soft heart. How many times have I told you that the most important thing in the cultivation world is a soft heart?" "Yes, disciple understands." Zhenqing smiled apologetically, then raised his head and said, "Disciple outside, come in." When Xiaohua heard this voice, he hurriedly ran into the hall, looked at the two and bowed. "Disciple Xiaohua greets the 2 seniors." "And whose disciple are you?" Zhenyi asked very calmly. Reporting to martial ancestor, disciple is a helpless disciple of the myriad Thunder Valley. Xiaohua naturally knew that this unfathomable cultivator was the Gold Core Realm Zhenyi, and very respectfully replied. "Helpless?" Zhenyi frowned slightly and said curiously, "This brat's eyesight is really not ordinary. That disciple from before made him lose face, and this newly accepted disciple is still so useless." Hearing Zhenyi's words, Xiaohua was slightly angered in his heart. It wasn't a big deal for Zhenyi to say that he was a good-for-nothing. Over the past few years he had suffered more than that. However, when he heard Zhenyi bad-mouthing Xiangyang, Xiaohua couldn't help but reply, "This disciple made a mistake. It is this disciple's fault. There's no reason for me to implicate senior martial brother and make him a laughingstock." Chapter 1563. Huh. What? Don't tell me I said he was unworthy? Zhenyi never expected Xiaohua to talk back. He was so angry that he almost laughed. "Martial ancestor, this disciple doesn't dare to agree." Xiaohua stiffened his neck and said, "My 10,000 Thunder Valley was able to produce such a benevolent and filial disciple. Even someone like this disciple who just entered 10,000 Thunder Valley would have a face full of glory. How did I become the person that martial ancestor said would lose face for the sect?" "Benevolent and filial?" Zhenyi sneered. "If he wasn't benevolent and filial, I'm afraid he'd already be in the late stage of foundation establishment. At the very least, he'd be in the middle stage of foundation establishment. How could he be like this? He's only in the early stage of foundation establishment, yet he's being ridiculed by others every day? If this isn't losing face, then what is? Others ridiculing me is because they have eyes but fail to see." Xiaohua retorted sarcastically. "If it wasn't for senior brother, my 10,000 Thunder Valley would have already changed hands. I'm afraid this disciple wouldn't have been able to enter Master's sect. I wouldn't have been able to listen to Master's teachings. Because of this disciple wanted to thank senior brother at that time. I couldn't let senior brother be ridiculed by others. Have eyes but fail to see? Zhen Yi slapped the table and stood up. He released a wave of pressure. This pressure was several times stronger than before. Xiaohua felt as if he was frozen in a hard rock. He couldn't move at all. However, the fear that came from the bottom of his heart made his whole body tremble nonstop. Master Zhenqing said in a low voice, Xiaohua is still a child. You don't have any reason to lower yourself to his level. Humph, how can this old man lower himself to his level? Zhen Yi snorted and sat back in his chair. He glared at Zhenqing and said, This old man is angry that the Imperial Thunder Sect's recruitment of disciples is getting worse and worse. How can this kind of soft-hearted disciple be accepted? I'm afraid that in the future, Xuanyan School, Shanghua Sect, and Qiqiao Sect will gnaw on him until not even his bones remain. Hee master, this disciple feels that Xiaohua's words aren't without reason. Zhenqing said with a smile. At least, Xiangyang's heart puts the sect first. He's much better than those traitorous disciples from influential families. I knew you would say that. Zhen Yi snorted again and withdrew his pressure. Xiaohua immediately felt much more relaxed and didn't dare to say anything else. Let this old man ask you, which clan's disciple are you? Zhen Yi looked at Xiaohua and asked. Reporting to Grandmaster, this disciple is a loose cultivator. Xiaohua spoke the truth. What? A rogue cultivator? Not only did Zhen Ye's expression change, even Zhenqing's brows furrowed. It's very rare for a rogue cultivator to reach the 11th level of qi refining. Zhen Yi sneered. Xiaohua naturally knew what they were talking about. After thinking for a moment, he cupped his hands and said, Disciple has something to say. If it's inappropriate, I hope Grandmaster can forgive me. Speak. Just now, Grandmaster said that my eldest senior brother is merciful and doesn't treat raising his cultivation as his top priority. He's purposely throwing away my master's face. But why are we, rogue cultivators, despised by others for raising our cultivation by hook or by crook? Of course it's important to raise your cultivation, but you can't be unscrupulous. Rogue cultivators don't care about etiquette and rob others. Of course it's despised by our cultivation sects. Zhen Yi still sneered. Rogue cultivators don't have medicinal pills or cultivation methods. If they don't rely on robbing, what can they rely on to raise their cultivation? Xiaohua said. Besides, since Grandmaster said that we can't be unscrupulous, why is it that when my master wasn't in Myriad Thunder Valley, someone coveted Myriad Thunder Valley? Is that a very good method? Grandmaster didn't say that other people's methods were inappropriate. But why did he say that my senior brother who was robbed was a disgrace? This in an instant, Zhen Yi was really stumped by this question. His face was a little green and red. Haha, master, this brat is really interesting. You were just joking with him, but he actually said so much. Zhenqing hurriedly said with a loud laugh. Zhen Yi stared blankly, but soon after, he also laughed loudly. He pointed at Xiaohua and said, You brat, go back and tell this to your helpless master. What are you doing in front of this old man for? When Xiaohua heard this, his heart relaxed greatly. He cupped his hands and said, Disciple saw that Grandmaster is perceptive to the smallest detail, so I said it in front of Grandmaster. If Disciple said it in front of Master, I would have been kicked out long ago. Perceptive to the smallest detail? Zhen Ye's expression changed again. He said, Don't flatter me. If you're in the wrong, just say it yourself. Yes, Disciple doesn't dare quibble. Disciple was indeed in the wrong. Xiaohua's expression also became serious. He took out his storage pouch and said, Disciple picked the blazed dawn grass and brought it here to receive Grandmaster's punishment. Zhenqing glanced at Zhen Yi, and with a wave of his hand, the storage pouch flew into his hand. Zhen Yi looked at Xiaohua and asked, What punishment did Bright Thunder Hall give you? Disciple is punished with a year's worth of offerings. Xiaohua said honestly. Only a year's worth of offerings. Zhen Yi sneered. How much can a year's worth of offerings be? Disciples of aristocratic families who can enter my Imperial Thunder Sect. Speaking up to here, Zhen Yi suddenly remembered that Xiaohua was a loose cultivator. This year's worth of offerings was probably quite a lot for him. Xiaohua, did you pick this blazed dawn grass yourself? Zhenqing opened the storage pouch and took out a jade box to look, and asked with some surprise. Yes, disciple personally picked it. Xiaohua's eyes turned slightly as he replied. Master, please take a look. Zhenqing gave the jade box to Zhenyi and said, this blazed dawn grass was picked at just the right time. It didn't hurt the roots at all. It's much stronger than the blazed dawn grass that disciple saw just now. And it's really not bad. Zhenyi nodded after looking at it. He looked at Xiaohua and said, this little loose cultivator's explanation is much better than the vast majority of disciples of aristocratic families. Hee, I'm afraid it's better than many of my Imperial Thunder Sect's herb-growing children. What do you mean? Zhenyi looked at Zhenqing and asked. Zhenqing transmitted a few words to Zhenyi. Zhenyi frowned and thought for a moment, then slightly nodded. He then said to Xiaohua, Xiaohua, you made a mistake this time and delayed the refining of my Thunderclap Palace's Minghua pill. This crime isn't light. Since you just entered my Imperial Thunder Sect, and this is your first offense, I'll give you a chance to redeem yourself. Many thanks, Grandmaster. Xiaohua hurriedly bowed and thanked him. Don't thank me. It won't be too late to thank me after I finish speaking. Zhenyi waved his hand and said, I saw that your method of picking flame dawn grass was very brilliant. You should have experience in cultivating spirit herbs. I wonder if you've stayed in a pill refining room before? Disciple has some experience. Xiaohua nodded. And, do you have a fire attribute physique? Yes, disciple has a fire attribute. Good, then you'll be a pill refining child in my pill refining room for a year. That's enough. Zhenyi clapped his hands and said with a smile. Ah, this. Xiaohua was slightly stunned. Why aren't you agreeing? Zhenqing's voice sounded once more. Master has seen your herb gathering skills, and he appreciates your talent. If you agree and perform well this year, Master might be overjoyed. Even if he doesn't accept you as his disciple, it would still be a blessing for you to learn how to concoct pills. That's right, just now Master said that if your aptitude is good, after you reach foundation establishment, he can even consider passing on the true Samadhi fire technique to you. Hearing this, Xiaohua understood. To an ordinary disciple, how could this be considered a punishment? It was simply a reward. An incomparable reward. However, did Xiaohua lack these things? It wasn't like he didn't know how to refine medicinal pills, or the true Samadhi fire technique. What he lacked now was time, an opportunity to cultivate in seclusion. That day, Jade Archive Hall's Zhen Liang wanted to delay Xiaohua's registration, delaying him for a year. Xiaohua could angrily teach him a lesson, so how could he waste a year in Zhenya's pill refining room? Although Zhenqing wanted to help him with good intentions, but Xiaohua thought for a moment, then very apologetically smiled at Zhenqing. He then bowed to Zhenyi and said, Many thanks for Grandmaster's good intentions. Disciple is willing to redeem himself. Unfortunately, disciple only knows how to grow spirit herbs and isn't familiar with pill refining. If disciple delays Grandmaster's pill refining, disciple can't bear the responsibility. Grandmaster, please reconsider. Zhenyi and Zhenqing's expressions changed slightly. What kind of person was Zhenqing? He had only seen Xiaohua protecting Xiangyang and felt pity in his heart. Although the method of harvesting was good, it was only an excuse. Since Xiaohua didn't care about this kind of opportunity, how could he say another word? Humph. Very good. Zhenyi sneered. He thought for a moment and said, This old man originally made an appointment with an old friend to look for something. However, because your blazed dawn grass didn't arrive, the journey was delayed. At this time they should have already left. This thing is very important to this old man. This old man also waited for many years to get the news. Since this time was delayed because of you, help this old man find another one. As he spoke, he waved his hand and a jade slip flew into Xiaohua's hand. This Xiaohua smiled bitterly. He looked at the jade slip and said, Disciple. How can disciple look at this thing? Besides, how can disciple find something that Grandmaster cares about? This won't do, that won't do. Do you want to receive punishment or not? Zhenyi sneered. Besides, this old man only asked you to look for information about something, not for you to look for it. You used to be a loose cultivator, so you should have some connections to inquire about it. Moreover, this old man isn't asking you to look for it right now. You only need to find the information within 10 years. Ah, 10 years? That long? Xiaohua was stunned. 10 years is too short? Then 20 years it is. Zheng Yi said. If you can't find the information within 20 years, this old man can still deal with you when the time comes. Damn it. I might as well be his pill concoction boy for a year. Xiaohua secretly complained in his heart. However, since things had already reached this point, how could he still go back? Then these few years of Disciples Foundation establishment realm, do they count? Xiaohua began to calculate with his fingers. Nonsense, of course they count. Zheng Yi glared at him. He knew what Xiaohua was thinking and said, You don't have divine sense right now, so you can ask your eldest senior brother to help you look. He impatiently came to this old man's immortal's cave several times already. Just ask him to tell you. As he spoke, he waved his hand again and said, You can go now. Leave the storage pouch here, and let your master give you another one. This can also be considered a punishment. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for it. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.